Sorry about that.
She's from Rhode Island. Nice. Yeah, she wanted one from another state. Well, that's nice because if she gets along, she's in there. And Meg wanted something from another state. My daughter's 28. She wanted a person from another state to maybe have the opportunity to leave the state sometimes. Oh,
You did?
yeah, I found him. I just looked up. Well, okay, it's not a phone. It's Snapchat or it's just my kids. They don't do phone. Then they would do text. Now, then they would start to Snapchat, which I don't know. Now they don't even type. They do the video on Snapchat and send it to you. So I learned the other day how to do this video thing on Snapchat. So here I am trying to do this video at 5 in the morning at home, and I'm like, sent it like 5 times, like, wow, and does this, like, trying to figure out. Finally, they were like, you need to get it. So, like, this morning, I was like, this is crazy. Yeah, they do. I'm like, oh my god, this is so much work. Why would I just push the button and video instead of that means like they text you. Or she'll say, you can see the notification. Why are you asking? It's going. Good. Oh, and what I'm doing.
Yeah. Sam broke his leg playing baseball. He was very like, he got to walking and they're like, no, I'm fine. And he took like 10 steps. I'll take the question back. And I'm going to pay a lot of it.
I know the first bill comes in now. And luckily, it sounds like both of our kids got some scholarships. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then now it's like a meal plan. Like I can afford a meal plan. And I want to have like
Sam had to miss a couple of his for not being able to. Like these little one things.
Yeah, I love that.
Natty, the little guy, when he was first,
but you know, they don't know what to tell you.
he was his brother had kind of poisoned him.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he always like Mickey Mouse game.
Oh, I love
He was
that.
like, oh, there's a dancer.
Yeah, how old is he?
3.
Oh my God.
Oh, yes.
Good to see you.
Oh, yeah. And then they can get their card. Yeah. And then they can get for ease delivered through cash put on the card. You know, I'll do that more. I'm like, she's like, but it's 10% off. I'm like, well, that's all. Oh yeah, my assistant's son is going to Minnesota. There's just the robots everywhere that deliver everything. Yeah, we visited some colleges that have that. Water and coffee and the robots. Yeah. We visited some schools in Connecticut. I was like, that's not your reason for coming here. Right. She's like, but it'd be so fun. But I will tell you, touring campuses and stuff, I was like, look at the college. How did I survive? Don't do what mom Just don't tell my kids these things. Like, don't give them any ideas, right? So it's like, that was a long time ago. I know. I was down here in Manchester for all of that year. I thought it was being so I talk to them. If you want to see this, I can fight over. And the mayor did such a great job. I mean, people were just yelling at him. At the end, and he was just standing there like this last night. Yeah, the mayor just stood there perfectly straight last night. Citizen after citizen, they have 4 minutes, and they said the time's right. And he was just standing there. Yeah, I was very impressed with his mannerisms. He introduced me as that. I was very impressed with him. I was feeling great. I think they're inclined to not do that.
Sorry about that. I gotta get. My state body, I think. So I talked to probably Matt.
How many items do you have?
And I think in 18 they got I think it's day 6. My favorite. Again, I told you last time we did this, years ago, it took me calling Cindy's office, and he had to talk to the Secretary of the Army, say what the heck, and magically it went, but we lost about 9 months. Yeah. So let me know, I'm happy to make ways. And I also have attention, the program has attention, I was able to get the White House Office of National Cyber Director. They just said, let's get through FIFA, and then we'll talk, if they're interested, I can drop that if I need to. I don't want to go nuclear if I have to. But Alan? Yeah. Oh, Max was good. Yeah, no, it's good. So the Saturn group thing, so Dennis has been working here, he knows, he's close to people on Overwatch thing, the only customer Dennis only sells. So they're gonna basically make the orders. There'll be some change. So I think that's the right move. Of course, if that doesn't work, then I will make sure they know that.
Yeah, I know we did
There's no choice. We're their own company. Other than that, it's great. Anyway, so I don't drink with them. Probably. It's a simple, you know, this is a simple list. I'm here on assignment. I don't know what this means. There's risk involved. They're not going to put it in the water for the file. Other than that, it's great. But yeah, so I'm very familiar with Harvard. Been there personally.
Hi there, nice to see you.
to welcome everyone to the July 8th Governor and Executive Council meeting. Before we start, if you haven't already, please silence your electronic devices. Thank you very much. And we are going to begin this meeting with a prayer from Pastor Andy Locke of the Mercyville Church. Pastor.
Before we pray, the book of Proverbs chapter 2 verse 6 says this, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding." Let's pray. Almighty and gracious God, we're grateful to gather here in the historic and beautiful Manchester Millyard, a place that has always told the story of what New Hampshire people can do through their hard work and will. These mills once clothed armies and helped carry this state, this city, and this nation through times of war. This year, as our nation marks 250 years, we're reminded that freedom is costly, and that the work done in this room today is part of that same tradition of hard work, determination, and ingenuity. Grant our governor and council members wisdom as they consider the past that shaped Manchester and this great state, the present work of representing its people and stewarding its resources faithfully, and a future being built in these same walls through scientific endeavor and innovation. We ask for that wisdom now. Clear, practical, and good for the people this council serves. Bless this meeting and this state's next chapter. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I would now like to welcome forward a great person, former District 4 Executive Counselor who served on the Executive Council from 1987 to 1997, and obviously such a great part of this city and contributor. So if I can invite forward Earl A. Richter III, who is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Earl. Thank you. And now we are very blessed today to have a performance that I've had the opportunity to hear on many occasions, but it never grows old because they are phenomenal. So today we're going to hear from the New Pipes and Drums, and they will be performing for us. The Police Association. had a phenomenal season. And I happen to have a son who was also playing Division I baseball at the same time. So I know what great competitors they are and what great student athletes they are. So we're really honored to recognize this championship team today. And, you know, I know Counselor Stephen really wanted to recognize them, and I love it. He represents them. And he plays for them. That's awesome.
Live spirit tradition.
I think people can hear me from here, but I'm going to read this proclamation. I didn't mean to look last, guys. Sorry. So we're recognizing the Trinity High School baseball team, whereas the Trinity High School baseball team achieved an extraordinary milestone by capturing the 2026 NHIAA Division I state championship with an 11-4 victory over Londonderry High School, securing the program's first state title in 34 years. And whereas, that's awesome. Whereas throughout the 2026 season, the Pioneers established themselves among New Hampshire's top high school baseball programs through consistent play, discipline, execution, and a commitment to competing at the highest level. And whereas Trinity advanced through a challenging postseason with impressive performance in critical moments, demonstrating composure, confidence, and the ability to rise to every challenge on the road to the state championship. And whereas this championship reflects the outstanding leadership of the coaching staff and the collective commitment of the student athletes, whose preparation, sportsmanship, and shared pursuit of excellence defined a truly memorable season. And whereas by ending a 34-year championship drought, the Trinity High School baseball team has created a lasting legacy for its school, inspired future generations of student athletes, and brought tremendous pride to the Trinity community and the city of Manchester, and I would say the state of New Hampshire as well. Now therefore, I, Kelly Ayotte, Governor of the state of New Hampshire, do hereby commend the Trinity High School baseball team upon winning the 2026 NHIAA Division I state championship, and extend my congratulations along with the executive members of the Executive Council to the players, coaches, families, and supporters of this outstanding team. And where's the coach? Bring the coach along. Come on, coach. Nice to see you. Fantastic. Congratulations. Scholars on this team too as well.
Yes.
Great to see the scholarship. So, Coach, do you want to say anything?
I consider myself lucky to be able to lead this young group of men, along with Coach Ernie, Coach Preston, Coach Brian, Coach Stanton. It's a pleasure. They buy into the process. They work hard. They work as a team. They embody everything it means to be a true team. And it's been a real fun season. We hope to do it again. Thank you.
I just want to say, guys, you did a heck of a job being a former alumni. I'm proud of you all. I watched some of the games. During the year, you guys exhibited sportsmanship, which was critical. And that's the pride, spirit, tradition I talked about from Trinity High, being a former Pioneer. And when I was on the team, we had won
graduates, the many contributions that he made to our state government as well. And I thank you for that, for giving of your time. And now therefore, I, Kelly Ayotte, Governor of the state of New Hampshire, do hereby commend Dick Anagnos for his extraordinary contributions to economic development, community revitalization, and civic leadership, and extend my sincere appreciation for his lasting impact on the state of New Hampshire and its people. I also wanted to add, yesterday, that's another great example of how committed Dick is to expanding housing opportunities in this state. Yesterday I was at a ribbon cutting for a project in Londonderry that is being built for two new companies, Grace and Ken Selinsky's, and they are building the housing for their workforce and other workforce in the area, and Dick helped lead that project. So that's just one example. I think he gets up every day and figures out, okay, what can I do to make sure that there's more housing opportunities in the state. And any of you who have ever been to Glendale know that he's always cooking in the back on the grill. I think George Kapatis can attend to that, so he gives a lot to his church and to nonprofits, and he's one of the people that make this state great. And Dick, we're really honored to recognize you today, and I don't know if John wants to jump in on that.
I mean, you already talked about the Glendale, the president of the Greek Church as well at one time. That is all about Manchester. We talked today about Manchester and leaders, from Samuel Blodgett, the folks at John Starr. We have a leader here who's done so much for our
Pretty good for you. So, would you like to say anything? Sure.
I just want to thank you, Governor, John, and members in the audience, council members. I don't really deserve this. There are a lot of people in the state that realize as much, if not more than I do. But I really appreciate the recognition.
Stuart is trying to get you back Manufactured Housing Installation Standards Board, can I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Robert H. Wentworth of Raymond?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. As the Director of the Division of Licensing and Board Administration at the Office of the Professional Licensure and Certification, can I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Erica Lammy of New Boston?
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Now moving forward to the list of confirmations. Can I please have a motion to confirm Robert R. Scott of Bow as the Commissioner for the Department of Environmental Services?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Council Leopold.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott is an incredible asset to the state and has been doing a very good job over the last 8 years, and I'm delighted that he's going to step forward again and continue his leadership. And that's all.
Thank you. Councilor Stevens.
Commissioner Scott has done an exemplary job getting the hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure for drinking water and wastewater, and my district has directly benefited, as the whole state has. But it's been his work on PFAS contamination, and you'll see in the report, item 3A, he's been responsible for getting $116.6 million dispersed. Those are tackling this ongoing problem in the state of New Hampshire. Well done.
Commissioners always room the decision is that.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Governor. I want to echo the words of my fellow councilors. But additionally, this is a very reasonable man, thoughtful, constituent-friendly, someone who has worked very closely, constituent-friendly, someone who has worked very closely on water quality, lakeshore permits, environmental concerns, enforcement issues, which, obviously can get very contentious and frictious at times. But he has a demeanor to walk us through those issues. He also works on solid waste issues. But he listens, as has been mentioned, and we're very fortunate to have a veteran who served in one capacity in the Middle East earlier in his career, who's now serving state service, and he has a very diversified background in the environment, both in air quality and now the overall mission of DES. So we're very fortunate to have him stay on.
Thank you, Councilor Kenny. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor of the confirmation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Can I please have a motion to confirm Sean Gill of Berry to the Personnel Appeals Board?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Can I please have a motion to confirm Jamie Conley of Concord to the Business Finance Authority?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Leopold.
Yes, thank you. We have 3 members that we are being asked to confirm to the Business Finance Authority Board. This is as a result of legislation that was passed during the recent session combining the Health, Education, and Finance Authority with the Business Finance Authority. And all 3 of these new members, the board is changing from 10-member body to a 13-member body. All 3 of the nominees for today's meeting are coming directly from the HEPA board. One of my concerns about the merger is that I don't want the nonprofit lending to be lost or overshadowed by the overarching mission, and I think they're very compatible, but they are also distinct. So I enjoyed the interviews that I conducted with all 3 members, and I'm happy to support them today, and I'm just glad to see that there are 3 members of HEPA who bring that institutional knowledge and experience, and I think will be good advocates for the HEPA component of the new BFA mission. So thank you. I think this was a thoughtful approach to bring these 3 members from HEPA over to BFA.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in
discussion of this nomination? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Can I please have a motion to confirm Katie Sutter of Claremont to the Board of Veterinary Medicine?
So moved.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Can I please have a motion to confirm Christopher H. Pingree of Bow to the Adult Parole Board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Counselor Stephen?
I would like to say, I spoke to Christopher and know him, but I spoke to his background, Governor, I appreciate you looking at this nominee. This is such an important role. A lot of people don't realize, that, we have issues when we release prisoners to make sure that they have, at least a transitional setting and known and the communities will be safe. I was appreciative to hear about his background and say, I think he's a very good nomination for this particular position.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Can I please have a motion to confirm Jeffrey M. Snickman of Newbury to the Board of Foresters?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Now moving on to the list of nominations. To the Public Employee Labor Relations Board, I nominate Carolyn M. Kirby of Manchester. To the New Hampshire Veterans Home Board of Managers, I nominate Carolyn Oemet Maynard of Hudson. To the Board of Registration for Medical Technicians, I nominate Tanya Carlson of Lee. To the State Veterans Council, I nominate Scott Hyder of Pelham. To the Ballot Law Commission, I nominate Robert J. Letourneau of Ashland. As the Director of the Division of Community-Based Military Programs, Department of Military Affairs and Veterans Services, I nominate Eric A. Besden of Guilford. To the Pharmacy Board, I nominate William L. Irvin of Wyndham. As the Director of the Division of Licensing Board Administration at the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification, I nominate Michael R. Ginunzio of Lawton. That concludes the list of nominations for today's meeting. Moving on, I ask for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Would any counselor like to remove any items from the consent calendar? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent calendar, which is items 1 through 5C, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries and the consent calendar is passed. We will move on to the regular agenda. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item number 6 from the Business Finance Authority.
So moved. Second.
The Director of the Business Finance Authority will now come forward and present the item and respond to questions from the council.
Good morning, Governor. Where would you
Actually, I
like
think that the podium is best so that the audience can hear and the council can hear. Thank you, James.
Good morning, Governor and Council. For the record, this is James Key Wallace. I'm the Executive Director of the state's Business Finance Authority. So the item here before you is similar to items that Council has seen in the past from the BFA. It's what's known as a conduit bond. A conduit bond is when a private company would like to borrow money from their lender, and certain types of transactions do so in the form of a bond, which is just another word for a loan. Those types of transactions, by law, go through an issuer in the state in which they're occurring, and the BFA's role in those is to certify that they're eligible for bond financing, which they are. Conduit bonds use no state taxpayer money. They're not guaranteed by the state. It's not a loan from the state. It's not a financial transaction with the state. It happens through the mechanism for issuing bonds. And that's the vote before you today. I'll tell you a little bit about, okay, who is this company and what are they doing? So there's a company called CleanSpark, who's in what we call the digital asset space. In this case, the digital asset they have is Bitcoin, and they would like to borrow $100 million from their lender, which is the institutional lenders in the capital markets. And they come to an agreement where the borrower will put $175 million in Bitcoin into a New Hampshire statutory trust to be held as collateral by their lender. So they'll borrow money, that will be the collateral, and that collateral account will have a bunch of safeguards to protect the lender. Namely, we all know that Bitcoin's value goes up and down. We're not here to endorse Bitcoin or underwrite Bitcoin or anything like that, just to explain what this company is doing. So 175 million goes into the trust account. There's a 24-hour, 7 days a week monitoring service that goes in, just like if you borrow against your stock as a company or an individual, that says if the Bitcoin falls below a certain level, which in this case is 140 million, the Bitcoin is automatically liquidated to repay the lender. So the lender gets paid, the company still is in the same position they were, they sold their Bitcoin today, but this gives them the opportunity to create a New Hampshire presence. This is a new mechanism to access markets for companies who are in this space. You can borrow against Bitcoin now. It's typically private market, but it's changing to be more traditional. Not that long ago, Fannie Mae started accepting Bitcoin as collateral for mortgages. The government includes Bitcoin in their portfolio of assets. I think Fidelity, 1,000 employees in the digital asset space, New Hampshire company. So it's just becoming more mainstream. And this financing is really an example of that, right? We're a company, we want to borrow from traditional markets, and this is the way that we do it.
Can I ask you, or ask counsel, but I also wanted to ask about New Hampshire's role and opportunity relative to other states when it comes to digital currency.
Yes, Governor, great question. So this is a huge opportunity for New Hampshire. So, digital assets, like full disclosure, I don't own any Bitcoin, I've never owned any, I'm a traditional markets guy. And I think that's what's interesting, is there's a traditional markets opportunity for this, I would say now established digital currency space. So many, many states are trying and try to do what we are proposing to do today, which is help create a mechanism where digital asset companies can borrow money just like anybody else. Willing buyer, willing lender, willing company, not subsidized by the state, not backed by the state or using state funds. And if we do this successfully, we already know there are many additional companies who want to come and establish a presence here. So some state is going to become the headquarters for financial innovation in this space. And right now, New Hampshire is in the front of the pack. I know at least 4 that call me and ask for copies of documents because they want to do what we can do before we can do it. And, I say, well, send me 91 airplanes. Or just read the council.
Thank you, James, for that presentation. So I just have some basic questions. Why is this request going to the BFA, number one? And can you just clarify the risk to the state of New Hampshire?
Yes, Councilor, good question. So it's coming through the BFA because by law, a private entity which wants to issue this type of bond has to go through the state's issuance process. This is how companies who borrow money in this way do it. We come before the council often with bonds like that. Actually, our new combination with New Hampshire HIFA, they often come to you with bonds of the same nature. That's just how you access that market. It's sort of a very mature, I don't want to say we're stodgy, but kind of a stodgy area of the capital market. And just like this, all of those have no risk to the taxpayers. The bonds are not debts of the state. They're not guaranteed by the state. The state is not responsible to pay. It's purely, even though it goes through this issuance process, it's purely a private obligation to the private lender.
So you mentioned if that asset gets to a certain level that they would liquidate,
Good question. So this transaction is rated by Moody's, it's one of the most conservative rating agencies. Gave them a rating similar to what Ford Motor Credit was. Ford's got a half tick up very recently, it's good for them. But so the risk for any lender is that you lose your money, right? In this transaction, the risk is viewed as particularly low because the collateral is held in a third-party account well in excess of the loan amount, like by a lot, right? So the reason a lender would do this is there are lots of institutions, right, big financial institutions that want to have a foot in the digital asset space, but maybe they're just not ready to go buy a bunch of Bitcoin, right? So what the lender gets with the negotiated company is you get paid your interest rate, and the interest is pre-funded in an account, so that's how those work. But the lender also gets a partial upside if Bitcoin goes up. So if you're a lender and you say, I want to diversify my holdings, I don't want to buy Bitcoin because it's too up and down for me, right? This is a good alternative because you can say, my downside is protected. I don't get the full upside if Bitcoin doubles, but I get a percentage of that. So it's more like a watered down, kind of safe way to put this on your portfolio if you're a JP Morgan type institution, which I think just pledged $50 billion, by the way, to this kind of activity. So that's what, and there's a lot of interest.
So my last question, is, are there other states that are doing the same thing? And number two is, what would be the potential benefit for New Hampshire's financial institutions down the road if this thing just explodes as well?
Yeah. So there are other states trying to do this. It's, I think, on any opportunity, there's a race, right, to try and own the space and get the economic benefit. New Hampshire has some advantages. We have a very sort of sophisticated advanced trust law system, which helps enable the security that we're doing. I don't want to pat myself on the back. We have the BFA who was like willing to actually figure this out. But there are other states who would like to take our place in the podium, and they would love to do that. The benefit is pretty significant. So the BFA gets paid a fee when we issue bonds, right? We're a self-supported agency, no taxpayer funds, But all the fees that we get, which in this case could be part of the increase in Bitcoin as well, 100% of those get relayed into small business loans, childcare, housing, economic development all across the state. In this case, see the documents, the BFA's potential fee is a percentage of the increase in the price of Bitcoin, right? Let's take the 100 million. I'm going to be very optimistic right now, right? And I'll pinch myself. Let's say Bitcoin doubles in 3 years, which it's done more than that. Sure, so it's not that, but let's say it doubles. 100 million is 200 million. The BFA's fee is 12.5% of that. So the state can get 12.5 million to invest into our local economies. Bitcoin goes up 10%. That's $1.25 million, right? That's a big deal. If Bitcoin goes down, we don't lose anything. We don't get this big upside, but we get the option for it. So there's a lot of public benefit that goes through the BFA, but also this is the transaction that's getting a lot of attention, and there are several other companies who would want to do a very similar thing. And let's make New Hampshire our home for financial innovation, right? And that's a good place to be because it's not taxpayer risk, doesn't require permitting, they're easy to construct once you've done them. And it's sort of, it's the momentum, right? The innovative state gets that momentum. So I think there could be several more opportunities for us. It could be a pretty important part of what we do in the future.
So there's no downside to state government to the BFA supporting this type of setup?
I would say no. Certainly no financial downside, no legal downside. I read an article in the Boston Globe. There was a retired assistant professor, I think, a gentleman's unknown to me, he's from the company still has the proceeds from their loan. They just sold Bitcoin now to repay it. No one expects that to happen or wants that to happen, but everyone walks away whole. It's fine. It's not a big deal. So Bitcoin clock is sold all the time. So I think this is very well constructed. You know, I think this is very measured. My board voted unanimously for it. You know, it's been a year of work. It's really gone through a lot of scrutiny, professional underwriters, Jefferies, rating agencies. You know, you can see the size of the documents under test. Hope that answers your question.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for the answer.
Counselor Stevens.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. Mr. P. Wallace, and thanks for speaking with me at 9 p.m. last night. As we discussed RSA 162, the purpose of the VFA in these transactions is to preserve or increase the social or economic prosperity of the state and one or more of its political subdivisions, and will promote the general welfare of the state citizens. Section 2, the Governor and Council find that the proposed financing, operation, and use of this facility, this investment tool, if you will serve a public use and provide a public benefit. And the Governor and Council determine that the authority's financing of the project will be within the policy of the Act. But as you and I were discussing in their application, they cannot quantify what's going to be delivered unless a significant portion of these proceeds are directed towards business activity, infrastructure, or hiring within the state of New Hampshire. The number of jobs maintained or created locally cannot be estimated at this time. Additionally, in the contract, they state no firm job creation or retention figures for New Hampshire can be provided at this stage. Further clarity would depend on disclosures about how and where the capital raise would be deployed. Alternatively, you have mentioned either 12.5% and those earnings, but that's not necessarily a guarantee, correct?
You're correct. It's a percentage of how Bitcoin performs. I don't know Bitcoin, so I'm not an expert in its price mechanics. Like buy low, sell high generally seems like a good idea. I think it happens to be low right now, but don't take that as a good advice. I don't know. To your point about public benefit, so you're right. So this is a financial instrument. So the public benefit derives from what the BFA and the state, what we do with those resources. I mean, the BFA has a tremendous track record of turning our resources into public benefit. Everywhere across the state, 6,000 companies and nonprofits, tens of thousands of jobs. And we depend on these kind of fees to do that. So I think that's why they wrote, well, we can't say, because we don't know what the BFA is going to do with it in 3 years. I have a few ideas.
As a follow-up, their bond rating is a BA2 rating with Moody's, and that's a speculative grade designation. And that's just 2 notches below the lowest grade, lowest investment grade threshold, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. That's, so we call investment grade sort of AA, AAA, New Hampshire grade, New Hampshire bonds, very, we should all be very proud of our bond rating, U.S. government. Many corporate bonds fall in this rating. In fact, most companies, some of the best companies you would think of in New Hampshire, wouldn't be able to get a rating. They would go unrated. Most of the bonds we actually write are unrated because they wouldn't get a rating. This is getting a rating at all was actually a pretty big deal. The company, we were all very satisfied with the rating.
And in terms of reputation and concerns, there is a class action suit that's filed, as you and I discussed, in U.S. federal courts, the Southern District of New York, alleging that CleanSpark made a decision they pivoted from alternative energy and software to Bitcoin mining, and you refer to that as a nuisance suit, but there are quite a few that are out there. Can you explain those suits?
Sure. So I think in context, it's good to know that any publicly traded company you look up will have a very long list of these class action lawsuits. I'm not an attorney, but an attorney would agree with me. anytime a company has a bad quarter, does an acquisition, is acquired, kind of anything, there's a cottage industry of class action lawsuits against public companies for, well, we think you could have gotten an extra 50 cents a share or whatever, so we're aggrieved. This is just, in my opinion, they're from 6 years ago. There's been no payments. It's not in their statements as a material risk to their operations that they have to disclose to the public company. I have no concerns whatsoever. It's good to know, but they're just always there.
And, final question, is there any harm in letting another state take the lead?
I mean, I would say yes, because I want New Hampshire to thrive. I think the harm is that they get all the benefit for all of our hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Help Steve.
Thank you, James, for that long conversation we had, and answering some of my questions. And I want to be clear that before I vote, there is no direct or indirect impact on the next steps.
100%.
And the RSA 162 requires finding a public benefit. And your board voted unanimously, which I respect your agency, voted unanimously that there was a public benefit.
Correct.
And I think approving this, and correct me if I'm wrong, signals that New Hampshire is open for financial innovation in this fast-growing digital currency market. Is that accurate?
Yes, very much so.
And I always like to say, I want to make sure we grow our New Hampshire brand each year. So I hear a lot of what you're saying, and it makes me feel like this is how we move our brand, state New Hampshire advantage forward in a great way.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think, even our local financial institutions, if you talk to our banking community, our financial community, are all putting effort into this space because it is moving that way. I mean, whether you like Bitcoin or not Bitcoin, the sort of digital side of finance, it's not even really sort of growing anymore. It's here. And it's a get on board or get left behind moment for a lot of financial institutions. So I think as a state, we want to be on the forefront 100% without taking risks for taxpayers, of course.
Councilor Wheeler.
Thank you. Is there a dollar limit on the amount of conduit one CFA can issue in a year?
No.
And then second question, earlier this year, earlier today, I was told that the companies could do this without the CFA, and now I think I heard you say they cannot.
They can't do what we are doing. A company can go to a private lender and say, lend me money against my Bitcoin and pay 17%, right, 18%, because, it's something that with this, will be the first time it's sort of been scrutinized by the mature kind of capital markets and said, yeah, this is safe, it's secured. I'm not saying Bitcoin is safe, but this loan, right, because of the over-collateralization, it's rated as a third-party trust. The company has no say. It's liquidated. They can't do it in this sort of way without going through an issuer.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how highly speculative this is. That this isn't the normal BFA type thing where you've got financing bricks and mortar or bonding for bricks and mortar. And trying to decide whether that should be the role of the BFA.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. It is not our normal bricks and mortar transaction. I don't think any of these digital asset companies are bricks and mortar companies. I learned quite a lot over this last year, saying, okay, so is this real, right? Is this legitimate? Does this make sense? And, I was sort of, as a traditional kind of capital guy, I don't want to say dragged into it each time. You're like, well, yes, I have to admit that it is, right? It's passed all the due diligence. We've paid for by the transaction. VFA enlisted the country's top law firm to help vet all of this. I do think, although it's not traditional, it's an opportunity, because this space is becoming traditional. It's just not what I was used to when I first saw it.
Thank you. So you've addressed the question about whether there's risk to taxpayers, and you've stated very clearly on the record that there are no public dollars that are at risk in the transaction. The Executive Council, the role of the Executive Council, according to RSA 162I9, is not just to ensure that there's no risk to the taxpayers, it's also to make some affirmative findings with benefit, as Councilor Stevens was discussing. So can you talk a little bit more, as I look at the statute, RSA 162I9, the findings, it refers to that the governor and council shall first make special findings as may be appropriate, and then also make general findings for all items. And then there's a list of special findings, and it says, and there's 11 of them. For any project, the governor and council shall specify the type of facility and shall find that the project should be financed within the definition of the type of facility and may be financed under this chapter. And then it proceeds to give this list of facilities: industrial facility, railroad line facility, aircraft hangar facility, commercial facility, water-powered electric generating facility, recreational facility, small-scale power facility, water facility, commercial fishing facility, redevelopment district. And this is not, clearly this does not fall into one of those categories. This is, I think, facilitating a private loan, essentially. And it doesn't fit into the definition of facility as far as I can tell. But I'm struggling to find this, that we can meet the requirement to make a special finding because it doesn't fit into one of the facility categories. And then secondly, with regard to the general findings, well, I'd like to explore that too. But first, can you just address under what authority is BFA able to entertain this type of transaction?
That is a great question, Counselor. Now you're like in my jam because I love this kind of statutory stuff. So it's not the first time, and this one won't be the last, that what we call a credit facility is part of what's known as a facility. And if you look into the statutes, and actually it's talked about on tab 1 in the packet, this falls under what we call a commercial facility. And so, and if you see the BFA's definitions, it talks about projects and collateral. It can be, by law, tangible or intangible, right? Because it's very often that when loans are issued, they're against accounts receivable, intellectual property, business enterprise value, all types of not bricks, right? So that's very common. All of those fall into commercial facility. And when you approve a commercial facility under 162I9, there are two special findings as the shared packet. One is that it fits within the definition of the act. We get opinion letters from lawyers to confirm that yep, this is within our jurisdiction, which we get, and that it will increase the economic prosperity of the state, which I think is the easiest one from all. And then, so those are the only two special findings required for commercial facilities. The remainder are, if you're a railroad, you got to talk about railroad. If you're water, you talk about water. And then there are general findings, and those are that it's feasible, they have the skills and resources necessary, no taxpayer money or obligation to pay, doesn't create any debt of the state, so check, and that it will increase the social or economic prosperity of the state. And so all of those are, in our opinion, satisfied. Your question about what type of facility is commercial.
And for certification as a commercial facility, that we receive letters confirming that it is a commercial facility and that there is some economic benefit to the state. Are you defining, is BFA defining the economic benefit to the state with regard to this particular transaction as the potential proceeds
Yes, our findings that there are two pillars to the economic benefit, both of which historically satisfy the requirements under the law. One is proceeds, which use the fund economic development programs. That's a very common pillar for public benefit, especially for self-funded programs. Every state uses a third-party authority. That's very, very common to rest on that finding. The second is the development of economy, new companies, new kind of clusters, ecosystems within the state is another example. I mean, we talked about Regen Valley, when the BFA was asked to do the student loan forgiveness program for that nascent industry at the time. The question was public benefit, and it was about creating a new industry with a legal framework, whether people like that idea or not. But, so those are great questions. Yeah, and they all come in what's known as an opinion letter. Every bond gets one certifying exactly that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think a very, I want to say clearly that I'm not opposed to Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general. That's not, and I'm not interested in advising people on how they should or shouldn't do their investing. But I do think that we are being asked as a state to lend a kind of legitimacy to a financial transaction, which is from an emerging, I would say, an emerging asset class that has been shown to be very volatile. And I am not comfortable moving forward at this time. You know, we received this packet, which it is, you know, this was one of, 100 other items. Last week, there was a holiday weekend. You know, the public has not had a chance to really digest this transaction, and I will say, quite honestly, personally, I have not, had adequate time to digest this transaction. So I am, I find myself in a state of some ambivalence.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. I'm not a pressure person. I would say that digital assets are, the only quibble I would have is they're not, I wouldn't call them emerging. They've emerged. They're here. They've been around for a while. Like I said, any day, you can get a home mortgage that's running Bitcoin. It's
Okay, but we can't have it both ways. We cannot be, on the one hand, the most, doing the first thing ever, the most innovative thing, and then also say it's not an emerging. So maybe I'm not using the exact correct language, but either this is something brand new that we're doing for the first time, and which carries some risk. Anytime you are the first person doing something, you might be getting it right, but you also might not. And I think this is $100 million. This is the legitimacy of the state of New Hampshire, and it may well be that all of your projections for the future are accurate, and there's nothing to be worried about here. But it also may be that there is something to be worried about here. I don't feel that the last 6 days has given me enough time to adequately assess that situation.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate that.
Any further questions from the council? I just want to ask a couple questions. Number one, this is a public company.
Yes.
And so we're not talking about a private company with this. So there are extra scrutiny that a public company goes through in terms of regulatory agencies that they have to meet when it comes to a public company.
Correct. And the financing has to meet Securities and Exchange Commission compliance rules. Very strict.
And they are pledging more collateral than the actual loan is.
Significantly.
No state dollars at issue.
Correct.
No risk to the state on state, us having back the loan, guarantee the loan.
Correct.
They have a rating from Moody's, which is many companies I know, private companies can get a rating from Moody's, even though, and it's not the lowest rating. of if it's here to stay, which states will receive the investment of it when we come, correct?
That's correct.
And that investment produces resources, if this goes well, resources that the DFA can then reinvest in housing and job care and other issues for the state.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't go well, we have no downside. The downside is protected to us.
Yes, there's no downside to us. I would argue there's no downside to the lender either.
And
Not
is
an investment
this
advice.
a well-known lender, is it a legitimate lender that's engaged in this?
It's a public markets process, so those are typically offered, and a bunch of big institutions take a piece of it. It's what's known as qualified institutional buyers.
Public markets will be able to decide.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the thought and work that's gone into this, and New Hampshire actually, since I've been governor, I actually did sign a law, while we have not invested in crypto, we were one of the first states to say that in the future, should that make sense for us, and we were, obviously we're going to protect New Hampshire on this, we were the first to say that we would consider that. And so I just want people to know that the legislature has been working on this on both sides of the aisle, because we don't, when we think about regenerative medicine, for example, we want to be on the first when it comes to producing the organs here. The digital currency, we're not going to produce that. That's been around for a long time, whatever we're going to do there. But in terms of if there's going to be a lot of investment in it, we certainly want the upside of that investment here in New Hampshire to be able to grow jobs and also hopefully housing and child care here, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that's why I put it on the agenda, and I think it's something that we really need to think about, because our state continues to thrive, and we're on the, when we are continuing to be innovative, and especially if we can do so in a way that protects the taxpayers. So I will, is there any other discussion with council? I don't know if there's a council needs more time, or where we are.
As this point of order, do you believe we have a public hearing?
I apologize, thank you for doing that. Are there any members of the public that have questions, that would like to weigh in on this, or to have questions for Mr. Puwal about this?
What business is the company?
Sure. Sorry, what's your name?
State your name, just so
Oh,
you can
I'm
direct.
I am a state representative.
Hi, nice to meet you, Representative. Company's name is CleanSpark. They're a Bitcoin company. They like to acquire and hold Bitcoin and use that as treasury to increase the value of their company. Their origins actually happen to be alternative energy, solar and wind, et cetera, which is kind of interesting.
Follow-up? Of course. Are they also, this is coming from some people, some constituents, and are they also into building data centers? Because I want to know if this is something that when you make a welcoming environment for this company in New Hampshire, are we going to get this as part of, now they're trying to build data centers in some parts.
Sure, great question, Representative. This deal is definitely not about data centers. I can't speak to their plans that, I don't know if they want to build a data center, but it doesn't come up with us, I can tell you that much.
And I can tell you the governor will support that, so there you go.
Thank you, Governor.
Any further questions from the audience? Or anyone from the public? Thank you. That closes the meeting portion of this. And if there aren't any additional questions, that is closed. And then I
Good morning, Governor and Councilors. For the record, my name is David Rectory, Commissioner of Department of Transportation.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. On agenda item number 14, underwater bridge inspection services. Can you just talk a little bit about the, this is $650,000 for on-call underwater bridge inspection through 2030. This is the type of maintenance, I think, that prevents bigger projects, bigger problems in the future. Can you talk a little bit about how many bridges require this kind of underwater inspection?
Yeah, I wish I had that number. I do not have the exact number of bridges that require underwater inspection. But most bridges that are over water get some sort of underground or underwater inspection. There are older bridges and deeper water and bridges that are more susceptible to scour and that we know are deteriorating in other places that I think get a higher degree of the underwater inspection. So I don't think it's every bridge over water, but certainly the bridges that we have concern with, we have divers, contract divers, which is this case. These divers are trained in underwater bridge inspection, and we have them go down where we have concerns.
Yeah, I know on the I-89 bridge over the Connecticut River, which has multiple
Piers, if you will, in the water, yes.
That experiences a lot of scouring, and so I was glad to see this item. On another note, the Andover Rail Trail. Very glad to see that the state has filed the lawsuit and the preliminary and requested a preliminary injunction. Can you give us a sense of timing of when the barriers will be removed and the public will be able to access the Northern Rail Trail once again?
I cannot. I would have to ask the Attorney General to comment on that.
Yeah, Councilor, to your question, we filed the complaint on July 1st, requested preliminary injunction. We have a hearing on Friday, so we'll have the hearing. It really just depends on when we get an order, and then we'll have to think about if we get a favorable order, whether we wait for the reconsideration period. But it is going to be probably at least a week or two. On the short end, it could be longer.
How long is the reconsideration? Is that 30
10
days?
10 days.
10-day reconsideration period from the time of a ruling.
Of an order on whether the court grants our preliminary injunction or what.
Good. Well, I hope that will go our way, and we will be able to get those Jersey area deductions. And I do want to thank your office. I know that yesterday you made the complaint and all of the supporting materials and memos from your office available to the public on your website, and I want to thank you very much. I know there's a lot of public interest in this, and it's not typical to necessarily share litigation documents on your website, but in this case you reviewed it and are making those materials available to the public so that everyone can see for themselves why we're arguing that the state clearly has, that the public clearly has access to the Northern Rail Trail, and that this abutter is unlawfully blocking public access. And so I encourage the public to take a look for themselves and see what the arguments are that the state is making, and wish you the best at the hearing on Friday.
Thank you.
Councilor Stevens.
Thank you, Governor. I commend the New Hampshire Department of Justice and the New Hampshire Department of Transportation for taking quick, decisive action to protect the Northern Rail Trail and preserve public access to one of New Hampshire's most treasured recreational resources. Your filing of 322 pages in Merrimack County Superior Court seeks to restore public access to, again, a 1-mile section of the Northern Rail Trail in Andover, and folks are having to divert potentially to dangerous routes, defeating the whole purpose of a rail trail. I applaud you for holding the abutter, who I have described as rogue, holding that person accountable. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And I'm just gonna go back to the timing question, because I don't wanna set unrealistic expectations. When I said a week or two, that is the quickest it could possibly be. It could very well be longer than that. So I just wanna make sure that we're setting expectations in the correct place. We hope the court will act quickly, but it could be longer. I just want to be clear on how to do things.
All right, keep us posted. Counselor Kenny.
I just wanted to add to Council here, Bill, at one point I represented that area, but in one of the contracts, the Friends of Northern Rail Trails, which has a resurfacing project under the NCR, it came in $65,000 to support that Northern Trail system. So with the interruption in continuing maintenance work on that trail system, it just shows you, what these Jersey barriers and that obstacle has done for the whole line and the whole system in that 58-mile track. And that, this can be very disruptive as it always has been. And so that's an important asset to the state. We continue to press for it, turn it down as much as some resolution. Because I always work by the adage, you get along with your neighbor, you get along with anybody. I can't understand this individual creating havoc and discontent for the public and for the people of New Hampshire. So, support the efforts to get that resolution. I did have a question of DOT Commissioner. I appreciate all the work that went on in Madison because of the flooding and storm drain shut down, all the roads in Pasco, and collaboration with local community movement and so forth, and that's just spectacular. But there was a microburst in Sandrington not too long ago. I'm just wondering, I know there's a lot of trees that were knocked down, some building damage. Was there any road damage that was substantial? And all the roads passed it in Sandrington?
I'm not aware of any road damage, big road damage in Sandrington, or any roads that are not passable.
Thank you.
Counselor Stevens.
Thank you. Commissioner, I have a question on number 7, and it relates to my district 4A. Exit and on-ramp to 4A. In the right-of-way acquisitions here, I see, so I'm going to get an opportunity to ask you, what is the status of opening that important exit for the community, and also the work that you're doing? Are we on schedule?
We are on schedule, so there's 3 projects that are involved in Exit 4A. The first project constructed the interchange and the connector road up to the town of Erie roads. The second project is constructing from the end of that through the intersection, I believe it's with 28 there, which will allow that whole section to be open. That's scheduled to be complete in 2028. One of the reasons why that takes so long is there's a significant amount of utility coordination that's required to relocate the overhead wires. So the crews are working on that. The rail trail and the box culvert, that has been worked through. We're updating NEPA, but that's not holding anything up at this point. We're moving forward. It's all the utility relocation that goes into a project of that size. You're going to see more of these right-of-way items because we're currently designing what we call the C project, which is Sinead Road out to Route 102. So it's part of that design process. There's a number of right-of-way impacts, and you're going to see more and more of these items coming through as we begin to purchase that right-of-way for that third project that's not yet advertised but currently in design.
So you would say everything's on time, right?
Everything's on schedule, yes, sir.
Okay. And then I have, first of all, with regard to number 9, I want to compliment the commissioners on that. The fact that this bridge design training is critical to our state. Yesterday, Councilor Kenny and I were at UNH, and we met some of your folks that do a lot of bridge work, and the research at the university is tremendous. We're actually a first in the nation, I think, with some of the innovation on bridges. And I want to just say thank you for the training is important because of the safety. And you decided asking us for approval of an item, $3,700 to train a significant number of your staff. Instead of sending them out of state, which would have cost $15,300. We constantly see items where department heads send individuals out of state for training. I wish more commissions would do what we do here. And that's gonna save our state a significant amount just if we all did that. So I wanna compliment you on section, number 9, and thank you. 14 is my final, item. I don't understand the rate process here, maybe you can help me. This is bridges between 5 to 65 feet. Where this company, we're hiring at $650,000 up to do the work and repairing or actually inspecting these bridges. And the bid that came in, the low bid amount was $8,708 from SLR, the company that was chosen. And then there's a section in here that talks about rates, that the department is going to be setting the rates are consistent with that bid, but up to $650,000. But these bridges are so separate, different in sizes, and some aren't going to require the same amount of time and effort. Is this, am I supposed to read this to be $8,780 per day? I just could not see the breakdown of the rates.
Yes, so on Exhibit C, which starts after page 8 of the contract, there is a daily rate, excuse me, for the fully equipped dive team, and that is $6,500 a day. And then there is a per bridge report fee of $1,140. That is how we get the fee of $8,780. That's what allowed us to choose the lowest responsive bidder for this contract. The actual payment will be based on the number of bridges a crew can get inspected in a day. So if they get 2 or 3 bridges in a day, we make out on the daily rate, but we pay that additional report fee for each bridge. And in the packet is some sample reports for you to see the type of output that comes from the inspection that these divers do.
Okay, so that explains to me then, this is a team.
This is a team, fully equipped, well-trained team of divers and technicians to do the in-field work and then to prepare the reports.
And then, okay, so would I be fair to, understand this being the team is necessary, so it's not like each member of the team is a certain rate structure per hour labor, and we don't need all the labor, but that we do need the team for each of these inspections?
We do, yes, sir.
Thank you, that was my question.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions from commissioners? Hearing none, all in favor of items 7 through 15, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The item is carried. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 16 from the treasury.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Stephen? Treasury?
Good morning, Governor, from the council, for the record, City Treasurer Monson.
Thank you, Treasurer. This contract that was negotiated was $140,000 for 5 years, and I have $28,000 per year allocated based on budget.
That's
Is that
right.
the amount you're paying this vendor?
Yes.
So there's no increase over the 5-year period.
No.
That's a good negotiation. I will, I guess I'm gonna ask the question unrelated, but I want to ask on that.
Sure.
Just, I know that really important that we see some investments from the PDID with our community banks, and you started that with the new vendor. And I asked, and I think we're getting close to maybe that 10%. I don't know, I just want to know, at this juncture, what percentage of the PDID investments are with the Hampton banks versus out of state?
Thank you for the question. We have about $80 million, which is about 10% of the total portfolio, so I think we've done a very the pool has the ability to receive up to 40% and liquid funds. But I believe the current target is from 15%, oh, 100 million. That's what our
So
manager is
15%
looking at.
would be $100 million.
100 million. That's the spend. And then we have about 80 million. So
Thank
it's doing well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any further questions for the treasurer? Hearing none, all in favor of item 16, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The item passes. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 17, Community Development Finance Authority.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Council Kenny.
Good morning. For the record, Katie Easterly Market with the Community Development Finance Authority.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I did have a question about this particular community development block grant for, in essence, a new HVAC system for the Berlin, Notre Dame senior housing project. We're going to have about 33 senior housing units there. And so this just shows you how long I've been around. I went to the grand opening ribbon cutting for this Notre Dame High School's senior housing project facility. It was at that time about a $62.2 million project that I had was leading a lot of different funding sources that came around. But can you explain to us what is the stewardship plan for a CDF, a grant? I was under the assumption that it was 20 years. Is that correct?
That is correct. So they aren't required to have the units rented to people of limited means for 20 years. So this will add 20 years to their previous commitment.
Okay, and I'm not going to get into how you calculate that because, 500,000 versus $6.2 million, I don't know how to do that. But I guess my question is, we have a heating system that prematurely disintegrated or is about to fail. What is the responsibility of the facility manager head to make sure that they conduct the appropriate repairs and maintenance on a facility that, in essence, should be good to go for 20 years?
Yes, they're required to have an asset management plan. They are also required to put capital reserves away. This was a very unique situation in which the water actually deteriorated the system, and they didn't realize until they started to see the failures because there was no evidence of it, even as they were following the asset management plan, which we did review during the site visit. We had some of the very same questions. We were very concerned about the ability of irrigation, but the water actually deteriorated in the units. They've now put a filter on, so that the issue that created the problem has been resolved. But unfortunately, the units themselves have been now damaged, and they're needing to likely be replaced.
So there's no insurance aspect that will cover issues like that?
There unfortunately are not, but we did require and saw that they had sought out that option prior to coming forward.
So you see where I'm going with
Yeah.
the CDFA, Community Development Block Grants, great program for public facilities, but I hope it doesn't become a program where we're really doing operational expenses replacement, using these public funds.
Absolutely agree.
So this is a very unique request for a very unique condition.
Yeah, that was unknown and unable to be detected, and usually these things would not happen in this way because they would have been considered at the onset. We looked at the engineering reports, which did not identify this issue in the water, that then led to the need for this much more sophisticated pumping system that would clarify the water. It was a very unique situation, and it doesn't happen very often, but it's put these units, unfortunately, in a situation in which, if it's not resolved, they won't be able to continue to be occupied by low-income individuals because the heat is not, at this point, available.
No, I don't really support this contract, but my problem is not with fixing the problem.
Right, why did it happen?
Why did it happen?
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yep.
And hopefully we don't see this in the future.
Absolutely.
Those funds, these $500,000 could be
through 23 for the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Counselor Ken? Commissioner?
Good morning, Governor, Councilor.
Morning, Commissioner. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
How many months on the job?
I think 5 at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're almost an old timer.
Don't be too harsh on me.
Appreciate all the work you do and all the work you do for the department. I did have a couple of questions on a couple of different topics. One was the last meeting I had questions about, contracts with regards to our trail system and making sure that people were, appropriately being taken care of, with the various vendors. Could you just kind of explain what the approach is going to be moving forward with helping out, 5 or 6 vendors that we're, looking for either state contract or reimbursement for services?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been working with Commissioner Arlinghouse and as well as my staff and his staff to address the concerns brought up at the last meeting. What we are doing going forward is I believe that DAS is going to be bringing forward some retroactive either price increases or new contracts, and I think Commissioner Arlinghouse can speak to that, but we will also be using key cards and purchase orders to fulfill a lot of the needs because they're commodities, and a lot of them are pretty low dollar amounts. Many of these purchases are $100 to $200. I think the average is $200 for our trail uses. And so we are working with DAS to, in circumstances where it warrants increasing the threshold beyond the $2,000 limit, we are working to do that and DAS has been very accommodating on working with us on that. And so we're still navigating through that process, but we are getting there, and I think the vendors, and the Commissioner can speak to this, I think the vendors are satisfied with our approach so far. I know DAS has talked to them all individually. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I just want to say, not retroactive. We are bringing contracts forward, but they won't be retroactive contracts. I just don't want to get in trouble. The rest of that is
sole source retroactive.
we're really trying to avoid that. The only other thing is I think most of the council knows that Councilor Kenny had a colloquy through email, which I then forwarded to all the councils and the 5 of you, and on the governor's behalf, and Director Hughes, so that you all have the same information as from you.
I got a lot of colorful emails I'll forward them to you from now on.
I'm happy to get them.
Thank you. My second question really has to do with Deadwater property. I understand that the state didn't exercise its refusal on Monday, and we're kind of in a different chapter, if you will, really looking at kind of compliance and review of the lease agreements, conservation easements, the stewardship plan, and can you explain to us what's the way ahead with regards to that?
Sure. Yeah, so for background, Aurora, who's the current property owner, provided a signed purchase and sale to the state in May to with Manulife, who would be the new landowner should that sale proceed. That we had 45 days to exercise our first right of refusal. We decided not to do that after extensive review between the governor's office, my staff and myself, and the DOJ. And there are 2 primary reasons for that. One is the purchase price, of course, and it would actually be more than the purchase price because of the cost to now the state cannot participate in carbon credit program. So the cost would actually be more than the $68.72 million should we have done that. And the second reason is because of the conservation easement, the stewardship plan, and the resolution term sheet. I think protects all of the things that we are looking to protect as it pertains to ensuring that it remains a working forest. I know obviously 30,000 cords stewardship component and public access, public outreach component that I think are integral to the conservation easement. So as we move forward, we will still be reviewing, and this chapter sort of isn't closed, right? We haven't exercised that first right of refusal, but we will still be working with both parties to ensure that the documents, the purchase and sale, the stewardship plan, everything meets the needs of the state. And so that is the path forward. September is when they're intending to close on the property. And so we are still working with all those parties to ensure that it meets the needs of the state and for the citizens of the state. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's where we are today.
No, I appreciate that comprehensive answer. There are going to be particular other questions probably that need to be answered along the way. For instance, is land vest managed to land with the new owners step in place? I don't know. Do you know?
We did ask them that question, and they have not made a determination on whether or not they will continue to use land vest in the future. But what we do know is that the new owner, or the prospective new owner, has met with us, met with the governor as well, to make sure that they are upholding all of the terms of the conservation easement, the resolution term sheet, and we have been pretty thorough with them to ensure that is the case, and they've committed to that.
No, that's good. The other question I had is, as we get through purchase sales, finalization, new owners come in, and the state reviews all the documentation, the new owners understand their obligations. When are we going to go to the advisory committee to give them a presentation on what's transpired, so they're well informed?
I know we have notified many members of the advisory committee. We can certainly give them a presentation of what's transpired. I know when we met with them, with Manulife, we expressed the importance of public outreach and making sure that they have a good relationship in the community, in all of the communities that the headquarters is located in. And so I can't speak for them, but I would probably like them, should this all proceed, to do some sort of public meeting with the advisory committee that introduce themselves and give them some more information.
Yeah, it's been my experience in dealing with that committee. If one or two people have the information and the others don't, that becomes a problem. So I would encourage you to do a presentation to the whole group so that everybody has the information to see.
Absolutely, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just also follow up on this topic on conservation easement? Just to appreciate any question and focus on this and how important it is to the district. Just to clarify, you were in a meeting that we had with Manulife, and we asked them, and they agreed to put in writing their commitment to the terms of the agreement that we had reached on the easement, including the level of timber harvest, including the trails piece, all of the terms of that agreement, as well as the revenue to the local towns. So we do have a written commitment for that, which I think is important, given all the work that went into that agreement and protecting our conservation easement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I appreciate your leadership on this, Governor, because I know at one point they weren't cutting enough, they weren't really harvesting enough, and as a result, the local communities were getting less and less revenue. So at least they know from year to year what they need to budget, select the town budget moving forward as regards to this revenue. So appreciate the work.
Yeah, we're going to continue to focus on this.
We'll count every log from it.
That's right, we'll count the logs ourselves, Counselor. Appreciate it. And I believe Counselor had a question.
Thank you, Governor. Commissioner number 23 is over $1 million for different items, and there's a number of contract grantees. So my question is going to center on equipment, because we're giving grants to groups, not communities, just groups of private industry and nonprofits and others to do grooming and other things on our
Let me invite Alexis Redko up. She's Deputy Bureau Administrator for Trails, and she should be able to answer that question more thoroughly.
Excellent.
Hello, for the record, Alexis Redko, Deputy Chief of the Bureau of Trails. And thank you for your question. We do keep a very good eye on all of the equipment that is given through our grant program, both the RTP and the GIA. All of our grants initially, once they take possession of the equipment, we all perform an audit, so that way they will make sure the equipment that they bought is what we take the grants for. And then every year when they use the equipment, they turn in grooming slips, so we can keep track of how much they're using the equipment. All of our staff, our field staff, are allowed to do periodic audits as much as they need to in order to make sure that the equipment is being maintained and used properly. We keep a pretty close eye on all of the equipment that our clubs use.
I appreciate that. The section 8 on default, preventive default in the contract. I looked at this contract closely, and it seems like if you find that the equipment is not being used for the purpose, stated purpose, I don't see anything in here, maybe it's the Attorney General, but I don't see anything in this contract that says the state of New Hampshire will take the equipment back. All it says is, you'll be not considered for the RT program for 2 years, you're found in default, we won't pay you anymore. I don't see one thing that says we can take the equipment back. And unless I'm wrong.
It's this explicitly stated that the equipment will be taken back in the contract. However, if we did find a reason for the equipment not to be used properly, like if they weren't using it properly, we would work with them to say, why aren't you using it properly? Is there a way we can mitigate this first? But there could be something that we could look into to include in the contract for the future.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm not going to say no to this contract. This is important, Governor. It's obviously important for the communities. However, I want to make sure that in the future, when this comes before us, that there's the ability to take back this equipment if it's being used inappropriately. And I don't see anything in the P-37, and it's going to be a big lawsuit if we ever get a big piece of equipment. And it needs to be stated in there, that's all.
We can absolutely work on that, and in fact, it's one of my goals to strengthen our accountability measures with all contracts that we have, we have the proper tools available to us in case something like that does happen. So I 100% agree with you.
Thank you, Counselor, good idea, appreciate it. Counselor Leopold.
Thank you. I know that your department was involved in the July 4th and the 250th recognition ceremony on Saturday at the State House. I just wanted to commend particularly Matt Flanders, who I know worked with the archivist and the Secretary of State's office. It was a really wonderful event. Good job.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Any further questions from the council? I also want to commend your agency and department for the work you did with Great American Fair, representing New Hampshire down on the mall. I got very good feedback about our booth and the staff that you had down there standing up. So appreciate your representing our state so well.
Thank you, Governor, I appreciate that, and I'm sure the staff will appreciate that too.
And thank you to the Granite State Ambassadors as well.
Absolutely, they've done a great job.
Yeah, they did a great job. We appreciate that. Well, thank you. All in favor of items 20 through 23, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The items carried. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 24 through 38A from the Department of Environmental Services. So moved. Any discussion of these items? Councilor Stevens. I see our newly confirmed commissioners on this board.
Still, good morning, Councilors and Governor. Bob Stuck, the Department of Environmental Services. Thanks for all the kind words, by the way. Endeavor to live up to them. So thank you. Monday when I called them to ask us why they didn't contact me. That's our they did apologize, by the way.
And just as a follow-up, those exceedances every weekend, and I applaud the team from your staff and DHHS because monitoring over a holiday weekend, they were in there doing it. But in terms of all of those exceedances, any concerns you're thinking of for potentially waterfowl or just the density of visitors using the beach?
Correct. So a little bit fill in some of the blanks. So yes, so on Monday watching the press, the public confidence in our water bodies and recreation is very important. So we made the decision then to do daily monitoring. We don't normally do that. I called Health and Human Services. They were great. So what that meant is the public health lab who does the testing for us had to work the weekend also. So we very much appreciate that. Obviously, the DNCR staff worked the beaches also. So I thought it was a great team effort. But we did that. Our modeling actually showed a very little practical impact, even in a worst case scenario from that outflow. But again, Massachusetts had already issued advisories. For example, Salisbury Beach had built swim pier, but if you go a couple hundred yards up, our beaches were saying we're fine. So Massachusetts, I believe, did that out of abundance of caution without testing. We wanted to base our work on testing. So we have a swim mapper, which we directed public to ensure that they can look anytime and have some confidence of our water bodies as well, not only the beaches, but inland. So you're correct. It's not abnormal to get waterfowl, sometimes dogs, and just people. You got a lot of people put together. Sometimes you can have exceedances of our standard, but that does not mean it's unsafe to be in the water. It just means it's ingestion risk, and that's what our science about.
And just as a follow-up, this was not associated with an NIFTY's permit, was it?
That I don't know. I assume there's an NIFTY's permit for those in Massachusetts because there was an outfall related to that system eventually. So likely, but the main break was obviously not envisioned in that permit.
And just finally, significant Clean Water Act violations, correct?
I'm not sure how they'll address that. Obviously, it was not a person. Yeah, it was not intentional, obviously.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any further questions for the commissioner? Thank you for the testing and the focus, and I'm told it was a great weekend at Hampton Beach and on our shoreline all the time there. So it's great to know that we were testing regularly. It has to be done safely, especially in such hot weekends.
Yes.
Great. If there are no further questions of the commissioner, all in favor of items 24 to 38A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The items carried. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 39 through 39A from the Veterans Home.
Second.
Any discussion? Council Kenny.
I think we're afternoon now. Yes. Good afternoon. For the record, Jim McKay, Commandant of the New Hampshire Veterans Home, and today with me I also have Susan Glover, our Chief Financial Officer.
So this is strictly latitude and latitude.
Great. Thank you.
I went to the event, governor and other elected officials to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Veterans Home. And I've never seen such spirit of veterans, family members, veterans circulating around, vendors, to the Black Hawk helicopter, to every display that was done for veterans. And it was just a really proud to be an American, proud to see those older veterans, lift their spirits and be a part of that community for that day. So, and the staff was extraordinarily nice, professional. Yeah, I just can't say enough. You guys really knocked it out of the park.
Thank you. We're still pretty happy. I do want to recognize, though, that it wasn't just me. National Guard, they had the Black Hawk land Fish and Game had a lot of representation there, and we had a lot of community support. But it was wonderful. 75% of our veterans actually attended, came out. We had many, many family members. We're estimating about 350 to 400 people attended yesterday at very low cost to our benefit fund. We paid for a performer to play. Other than that, everything was donated all the time. It was just amazing. So thank you for coming. It means a lot to the veterans to see everybody there.
Councilor Leo Hill.
Thank you. Can you tell us what the census is right now at the
Yes, as of this morning, it's 152 veterans. 11 of them are female, and Army is still highly represented. Sorry to the Marines, we have 11. We have 11. We have 11.
And staffing is a real challenge. I mean, in fact, the facility is actually licensed for 225.
We're budgeted by the state for 225 veterans, yes.
But our census is at 152, which is much greater than it was
4 years ago.
4 years ago. So we've had some improvement. But can you talk about the staffing challenges at the Veterans Home, and particularly with relation to agenda item number 39, which is temporary staffing contract, or two contracts rather, for temporary staffing?
Okay. We have seen an improvement in our staffing, and our numbers have gotten better, especially with the LNA, the licensed nursing assistants, because we have a program there, and we've had 58 graduates since June 2022, so we're pretty proud of that. But we can't make nurses, and so nursing is the hardest hit area, and especially second shift. You're either a first shift person, and then we have those unique people who love third shift, and they want to work third shift. The second shift is during our normal family time. So we struggle with second shift. Right now, we have this small contract for temporary nursing and LNA support. And we had got down in April, we were only using one person. Right now, we have 7 that we are using. It waxes and wanes because we have right now 12 people, or 10% of our nursing population is out on FMLA leave. So when that happens, that harms us and our counts go down, so we have to use those contracts more. But our goal is always to continue hiring, and we do lots of things. Like yesterday, we had a table out there. Want to work here, be part of our team. We go to veteran-sponsored job fairs. We do online job fairs. I speak as many times as I can to the public about how wonderful our facility is. We do ads in the paper. We do radio spots like yesterday. Why would you want to be at the Veterans Home and be employed here? And so we're taking all those steps, and we are seeing it inch up with the nursing. But I think we're just in that swirl with all the other state nursing homes and all of the across the country. We're just really having a tough time recruiting and keeping nurses in the field.
And so what would be the impact if you didn't have these temporary staffing services contracts?
I would be very concerned about the quality of care we could provide to the veterans. So if that contract wasn't in place, I would have to most likely close a unit. I definitely would have to stop admissions and lower our current counts on our neighborhoods. But it could be devastating because I have a significant wait list, and I wouldn't want to see that grow any more than it already is.
How many are on the wait list?
We have 49 on the wait list. 2 came in today. 1 more is planned. I have 2 beds open, but I was waiting to make sure the contract was approved today before we made any decisions about admissions. Our goal is 155 residents, and then increase that as we increase staffing.
Well, thank you, and you did send us a note that you indicated that this is listed here as a retroactive contract under 39, as a retroactive contract, but in fact you told the vendor not to start until you saw what happened today at the council meeting. So I appreciate that you took that on and decided to pause and not authorize any spending of money until the council votes on it, and I certainly hope that we will approve this contract so that we can continue, fill those couple of beds that we can, and continue providing good quality care to the veterans in our veterans home. Thank you.
So I just had a follow-up right here. So myself and Councilor
are starting to look at that, absolutely, for recruitment and retention.
Yeah, the workforce
Mhm.
development and so forth. Starting to look at it, I would jump in head first and try to say we are the veteran community, we are the people that need staffing for our older veteran community, and if you can help us develop healthcare workers at our facility, and you have resources, let's do it.
Absolutely. We do have a good presence with a lot of the local colleges as well. Right now, we're working with New England College to have a preceptor program. We're working with the Massachusetts School of Pharmacy. The pharmacists will be doing internships. We have Lakes Region Community Colleges coming in. We have interns from the state. So any opportunity we can to be a presence in those college environments, we are doing that.
Well, and I would say, I want you to connect directly with Donnelly and Rosa because those scholarships will, if the people commit to serve for a certain period of time, then these scholarships will allow them to their education. That would be a great opportunity to get them and back themselves.
Perfect.
Great. Councilor Stevens.
And just to expand on that, so the UNH is designing a clinical portal, a New Hampshire portal. Because today, healthcare facilities, including nursing homes, are using a Massachusetts portal to be able to tell students where to go. And we're going to have our own with oral health restoration, and that's part of the governor's initiative. So they're going to be building that. They're going to RFP that and build that. We need to make sure we speak to Dawn Lee, Bill North, because the clinical services as a nurse going to school, getting out and doing clinical work is so critical. And there's not enough facilities for using veterans. I want to shout out and thank you for those veterans that Council Kenny and I met in Franklin, the Franklin facility. People forget about them, and they're right next to you. And the fact that you were able to answer the call and help us make sure they were invited to go and feel welcome, I wish you would do more of that. I appreciate it.
They were on our campus as well yesterday. They had, people came over, but we also had a lot of the representation there to talk about what is the Veterans Campus so they can share that with the public.
Any further questions for the panel? Hearing none, all in favor of items 39 and 39A, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 40 through 42 from the Department of Safety. Second. Any discussion of these items? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 43 from the Youth Development Center of Kansas Administration and Settlement Fund.
So, second.
Any discussion? Councilor Stevens. Would you please introduce yourself for the record?
Well, thank you. My name is Gerard Boyle. I'm the administrator for the Youth Detention Center Claims Administration Settlement Fund. Been on the job now for 2 months. I would like to make some comments to let you know what we're doing over the last 2 months. If you guys would like to hear that.
Yes, certainly. Good idea.
In the past 2 months, I've met with the governor, met with the Attorney General, the Attorney General's staff. I've met with the Commissioner of Administrative Services, who is in charge of our administrative needs on the fund. I have met with the Chair of the Joint Fiscal Committee, Representative Weiler, the Chairman of the Senate Fiscal Committee, Senator Gray, and the Senate President, Senator Carson. I've also met with all of our contractors. We have 4 contractors that are part of our administrative team. And I've met with all of the council involved. The Attorney General was kind enough to make his conference room available last week. We had about 38 attorneys there from, frankly, all over the East Coast. And we had about another 30 or so by Zoom who were participating in that all-council meeting. I have researched similar funds all across the country. Funds involving the Boy Scouts, the Catholic Church. I've looked at a dozen of the largest dioceses around the country, the Catholic Church settlements over the past 20 years. I met with the General Counsel for the Boy Scouts in Dallas when I was out there for the National Annual Meeting of the Boy Scouts. and spent a couple of hours with him going over their settlement fund. They had the largest settlement fund in the country up until 2025. It was $2.8 billion with 82,000 claimants. In 2025, late 2025, early 2026, that fund was exceeded by the County of Los Angeles, which had a fund of $8.5 billion. I looked at these funds and I looked at their policies, procedures, and the things that they considered in making awards, and I also looked at their average awards. I also restructured the administrative staff of the YDC Claims Office by consolidating some positions and deleting others. I deleted the general counsel position, that was a six-figure salary position. I deleted the executive assistant to the administrator, the executive assistant to the deputy administrator. And I will hire an additional claims administrator in September who is frankly a national expert on prison rape. He was the director of the Merrimack County Mental Health Board that helped establish that, which continues to be the primary and most successful mental health board in the state. And we're just fortunate that he lives in New Hampshire. He'll be coming on with us for 2 days a week. I am also going to hire a deputy in October who will be on board for 3 days a week. And that will enable us to make more hearings available to the claimants. I've reviewed the contracts that the administration has. We have 4 contracts. 2 of those we'll be asking the council to renew. They have been contracts in existence since this fund began about 4 years ago. We'll be asking the council to renew those in December. They are in effect until then, actually until the first of the year. And the other 2 contracts are for trauma-informed investigators and questioners who I have redubbed those titles to claims analysts because that's really what they are. These people were interviewing the claimants during the hearings, looking at all of the information that they had prior to the hearing, what they gathered during the hearing, and then analyzing those claims and making a recommendation to the administrator. Those 2 contracts will not be renewed at the end of this year. They will be completely revised. The 2 people who are doing that work are doing a great job for us. They've done a great job previously. And I'd love to have them stay on board, but quite frankly, the amount of contracts was not reasonable. I cannot justify paying somebody $200 an hour on the state's dime. I cannot justify paying somebody $100 an hour for travel time in addition to mileage on the state's dime. That is more than double what any judge is being paid in the state. It's more than double what any commissioner or the governor is being paid in the state. In a few moments, you're going to be asked to approve a salary hike for the state's chief forensic investigator at the Department of Justice to the tune of $101,000 a year. These 2 people on my staff will be paid 4 times that. That's not going to happen going forward. We need to watch the money that is being appropriated to administer this fund, because every dime that is being spent on the administration of the fund is a dime that is not available to pay claimants in the future. So we want to be a good steward of the state's money. Those 2 people who run my staff, who still run my staff, doing a great job, thrilled with their performance, but the compensation rate is going to change substantially moving forward. The hearings are going to restart the second week in August. We're going to be doing 2 hearings a day, 3 days a week, so we'll go for 6 hearings in August. When we bring on a deputy administrator in October, we may increase that number. I went before the Joint Fiscal Committee last month after analyzing what I thought that we would need for the next fiscal year, which, as you know, began a few days ago. And I computed that out to be $55 million, not the $75 million that is talked about in the statute. I asked for $55 million. The Joint Fiscal Committee came back and gave us $20 million, which is what is before you here this afternoon. And they made it very clear that they said $20 million because that's what they knew they had. But we are certainly welcome to come back in September or October, which we will do, to ask for the additional funds. With the $20 million, that gives us a total of just $4 million to spend and fund over the next 12 months. Because the administrative costs plus those settlements that have been paid out over a period of up to 10 years are already out there that have to come out of the funds. So all we're able to do with this $20 million is a total of $4 million over the next 12 months. That is that $5 figure for what we need to do. So I'll be coming back and looking for the additional $35 million in September or October after the state sees how much money we actually can afford to put to it. With that, I'm eager to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Judge. Appreciate all your work on this and providing this information to the Governor and Council, and I'll turn it over to Councilor Stevens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for speaking with me yesterday. In regards to the fiscal outlook, we know that as of May 31st, 2026, the program is forecasting $66.2 million deficit by state fiscal year 30-35, correct?
That is correct. That's with no further inputs into the fund and based upon those awards that have already been awarded over a period of up to 10 years.
I'm seeing that currently the fund has $10 million, but you're forecasting you only have $4 million to spend. Your original request was approximately $55 million. So you would have been pretty close to that $55 million and anticipated $10 million to be on target for that deficit, correct?
That is correct.
So if you're only receiving $20 million, that is only appropriate, and I fully support this contract. How long is this going to run?
We will certainly have enough money to run this through this calendar year, but come the 1st of January, we will not have the funds to do that moving forward.
In regards to claims administration, we know you've only been on the job for 2 months, and we know you've got an aggressive schedule coming up, multiple hearings a week. But over the past 7 months, we've only seen 6 claims settled. The overall number of open claims has changed very little. The most significant operational change has been the movement of claims that you and I were discussing from administrative review into the Attorney General's office for evaluation and physician review. But your pace of hearings are going to rapidly pick up within the next 2 weeks, correct? And you're hosting how many hearings per week?
So we're going to have a total of 6 hearings a week, beginning the second week in August, and we'll do that every week moving forward, except for maybe a holiday week or something like that.
Truly appreciate our conversation that we had several months ago regarding outside counsel, and there was a figure of $6.9 million for a large law firm. At the time, you were not aware of it. You are now aware of it. How are we going to rein in those fees?
That is not part of my office's administrative costs. That is the Attorney General's office that has contracted with that law firm to do the work at the Attorney General's office. It's about $7.2 million, I think, over the last several years. But that's the question really for the Attorney General's office. That firm is doing the bulk of the work that the AG's office has to do in preparing these files and reviewing the files so that they're ready for a hearing. In addition to the hearings, I'm looking right now at trying to establish a mediation program that we have hopefully up and running late fall that will enable us to have more of these hearings resolved in a method that does not require a hearing, that will take a lot less time, and see if we can bring the state and Plaintiffs' Council together to resolve these in a reasonable manner. But that's something we're working on right now.
And lastly, I just want to give a shout out to your staff, because you and I were discussing yesterday, Jackie Curran-Stewart.
Jackie Curran-Stewart.
Is a rock star.
She is a rock star. Yeah, I think she's probably watching this right now. So she is absolutely phenomenal, and the office wouldn't function without her. And she did a great job of keeping this office up and running over the past 12 months.
Great. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Council.
Counselor Stephen.
Judge, I appreciate your fiscal responsibility. I really do. And, but there are victims out there, and I want to make sure, though, that when we do this best practice analysis, I would call it, for the states, have any of them done anything to rein in the attorney's fees?
Yes and no. And frankly, one of the things that the person I want to bring on is that is my deputy in October. He's not available until October, but he's a very experienced New Hampshire trial lawyer, extremely well respected. And I had this discussion this morning about attorney's fees and how we can look at those fees. And right now, most of the attorneys have contracts with their clients that call for a third. That's pretty standard in the personal injury field. Some of them are as high as 40%. But most of them are a third. The statute talks about the maximum being of 1/3. But as some of the senators and the state reps at the fiscal committee pointed out, some of these firms have hundreds of these cases. And it's not the same amount of work that goes into each case that, if you have only one or two cases, it may take a lot more of your time. But when you have hundreds of them and they're all very similar cases and claims, it may not require as much work or skill. And so we're going to be asking the attorneys to reduce their fees. And we're going to give them some incentives to do that. But we're in the process of working that out right now. And it's something we discussed at the all-council meeting last week.
Just as a follow-up, when you look at these other states, I mean, if they don't do this, is there an alternative to set some policy here to make sure? I mean, you're talking about putting a mediation process together that's going to streamline. That's going to mean less time, but it's still going to mean the same 33 or 30% take. Is that correct?
That is correct, unless the attorneys are willing to reduce that. And quite frankly, there are things that can't be done to encourage attorneys to do that. And hopefully, and I already know, I have spoken with some of the attorneys and they're willing to reduce their fees. Others are not. So we've had that discussion. It's going to be a discussion moving forward.
I would implore you to have that discussion, continue it, and keep us informed of those activities.
As has the members of the Senate and the House on the fiscal committee. I agree.
Thank you.
Counselor Leono.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. I appreciate the background that you've just given us, and it sounds like you've done quite a lot in your first couple of months. So thank you very much for all of your efforts so far. This fund was created to acknowledge harm, provide a trauma-informed alternative to litigation, and resolve verified claims fairly. And I understand the fiscal pressure of the state, but I am concerned that underfunding the fund simply delays justice for survivors and may increase the state's long-term legal exposure. We want people to use this process rather than go through the courts. The process has to be credible, timely, and adequately funded. So I am concerned. I know there was a choice that was made to not include the $75 million in the budget, in the state budget. But there was also acknowledgement that there was going to be some amount of funds that were going to be required. And so now you have gone to the Joint Fiscal Committee, as was always anticipated, and they've only approved $20 million, less than half of the request that you made, of the $55 million that you requested. How long, can you just clarify, how long can the fund continue making settlement payments before another appropriation is needed?
With this $20 million approved today to the end of this calendar year.
The end of this calendar year. So what happens to to survivors with verified or near-ready claims if the fund runs short? Will you have to stop holding hearings? You're on an aggressive hearing schedule. Will you have to, what happens in September, October, if you go to joint fiscal and you say, sorry, we don't have any money, what's gonna happen?
Well, I cannot in good faith hold hearings and make awards that are not being backed up. I have to tell you, my conversations with the members of the Joint Fiscal Committee has been very positive. They fully understand the need to fund this. They fully intend to fund this for whatever is necessary. It's just a matter of looking at the state's finances right now and seeing when that can be done. As you are aware, the statute changed and allows a lot of these awards now to be paid out over a period of 10 years. I suspect that virtually all of them are going to be paid out over a period of 10 years. And that helps substantially. The fund, when it was initially set up, the payments were being paid immediately as soon as they were awarded. And we cannot fiscally do that.
From a risk management perspective, is it more costly for the state to underfund settlements and push more claims toward litigation?
Well, it certainly would be, because, as you know, there's only been one suit so far that would affect this fund. There was another one last week, but it doesn't affect this fund at all.
No, but similar matter and a very high jury.
Correct. The very first one was a $38 million verdict, just one case. And you don't know what a jury of our peers is going to award. So, yes, it makes sense. It is a risk management issue, which is why the fund was set up here and elsewhere around the country for governments and nonprofits and churches.
Well, I am certainly going to support this agenda item today, but I am concerned that we're not solving this problem, that we're just pushing the shortfall a few months down the road. And I do hope that as the legislature is considering the budget for next year, that we will plan and anticipate the costs for it to continue this moving forward, because it does not make sense for us to be pushing potential litigants to court and ending up costing the state more money in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Judge, I just wanted to clarify, certainly, the end of this year just occurred so that we give the fiscal committee more information about where we stand fiscally, and that they've indicated to you, and you certainly have my full support, that you'll go with them and obtain the, ask them to allocate the full amount that you asked for.
Governor, I've heard nothing from anybody that indicates to the contrary. Everybody is fully supportive of the fund and making sure it gets funded.
Very good. The other, I'd be remiss, I know that Councilor Stephen asked about the attorney's fees, but could you also speak to this issue of the practice of the loans, which I've been deeply troubled by, because that is something that was brought to my attention when I learned about what was happening and how the money was being spent. I just want to make sure people understand that, as well as the attorney's fees.
So many of these claimants, and right now we have 1,700 outstanding claimants, but many of these claimants have taken out what a better choice of words is called a payday loan. In other words, they've gone to a loan organization and said, I have a claim against the state of New Hampshire. This is what the average settlements are. This is what I believe I'm going to get. And then they've taken a loan out against that at extraordinarily high interest rates, many of these.
I look at them and I think it sounds like almost like a loan shark.
I understand. And so that is out there. And that has been an issue with this fund since the beginning, where the claimants have come in and let us know that they have these loans out there. Many of these claimants have taken out these loans with the advice and consent of their attorneys, and many have taken out these loans against the advice and consent of their attorneys. But the fact of the matter is they're out there. That's one issue. So when somebody gets a judgment or a decision for their claim, then take that money. In the past, some of the claims have been paid out directly to the loan company in order to alleviate that extraordinarily high interest loan hanging over the claimant's head. So at the end of all of this, the claimant gets virtually nothing after the attorney is paid and after the loan is paid. Quite frankly, I don't think that's my responsibility as the administrator of the fund. I think that's between the claimant, their loan company, and their attorney. The other thing that's come up recently is structured settlements. So if an award is given to somebody for, say, $1 million, and it's being paid out over 10 years, the claimant wants to get the money up front. So the claimant would go to a structured settlement company and say, I have this $1 million award from the state of New Hampshire, it's good. It's not going to be paid all totally for 10 years, but I'm willing to sell it to you right now for half of that. And so the claimant ends up getting $500,000, not the $1 million that they were awarded, based upon the matrix that we have to follow in making these awards. And then the structured settlement company gets the other half $1 million. That has become an issue, quite frankly, over the past several months. What also happens with that is they file that then in court. The settlement, the structured settlement document they file in court. And I was notified by a sheriff that we had a hearing on one of these structured settlements over in Sullivan County this morning, and that we needed to be over there. So I let the AG's office and the Department of Administrative Services attorney know, and hopefully one of them took care of that. But obviously I can't be doing hearings if I'm running over to these hearings for structured settlements that happen way after the fact. And in my opinion, that's not something that my office needs to be involved in. The AG's office does need to be involved in that because under the statute, the AG's office, once the award has been granted, the AG's office manages that award and the payments on the 10-year period. But my office has nothing to do with that. And so hopefully we're not going to be, having to deal with that moving forward. Because every day that I spend in court doing something like that is the day I can't do 2 hearings, and that's crazy. So those two issues are out there that I think are issues that really weren't thought about when the whole fund was set up, the payday loan type thing, and then the structured settlement afterwards.
This sounds like something for the legislature, the public policy makers to think about, because I think all of us share the goal that we want the victim to receive the money. Not, with all due respect to lawyers have a role, they have an important role, but to have a reasonable fee, and then not to have, these so-called payday loans take the money, and the victim is left with little left. So I do hope, I think that's a public policy issue that we appreciate your advice on going forward, even though it's not directly your issue.
Exactly, thank you.
Any further questions for the judge? Hearing none, all in favor of item 43, signify by saying aye. Aye. The item passes. I ask for a motion, thank you very much for coming in and for your work on this.
Thank you very much, Judge.
I ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 44 through 48 from the Department of Justice. Second. Any discussion of these items? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The items pass. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 49 through 51 from the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Commissioner.
Second.
Any discussion of these items? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The items carry. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 52 from the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Program Quality and Integrity. Considered. Second. Any discussion of these items? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The item carried. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 53 through 55A from the Department of Health and Human Services, Division for Behavioral Health.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion of these items?
meeting, some of the work of what's happening and emerging. They help bring that information to the commission. And as I think you also know, they are the Center for Excellence, and so they have an abundance of resources about the system, AOD system, and now we're expecting that we need more expertise in the area of problem handling. So it's the breadth of it is pretty wide, and it is something that is very much needed by the commission. They work directly with the chair of the commission and not just the department. So we have meetings, I believe it's every other week, in order to make sure that we're moving the agenda forward of the commission.
So there were two bidders here, and you would agree with me that the Partnership for Public Health is a qualified bidder for these services, am I correct?
Yes, and as we've talked about in previous meetings, we put everything out to bid, specifically around the Bureau of Drug and Alcohol Services, and this is one of the contracts that we put up for bid.
So I'm struck by the fact that the company that was chosen, JSI, was a $227,000 amount. The low bid here was $106,000. It was basically more than $100,000 less, and they weren't picked. And I understand the evaluation points, and I know you can say 30% or whatever the percentage is to evaluation, but they're qualified. They're the low bidder, and they don't get selected. Shouldn't this RFP have said, if you meet certain qualifications, give us your best price for these types of services?
I can't speak specifically to that. I can tell you that it went through the process and through the selection process, and this is where it ended up. And as you said, I can't say, but I will say that the technical score did very good.
Not on that item. Is there ever, I mean, you work with the Partnership of Public Health. One more question. Of course. You work with them. We know that they have quality work. In the future, when the Governor's Commission wants to do a contract like this, that the department is actually writing, I mean, can we have an RFP process that sets a qualification and basically says, give me a low bid, the lowest bid wins?
I think that we always consider what the structure of the RFP is and what the qualifications that we're looking for, and are we looking for the quality and the cost, or are we strictly looking at cost? And I think that's something that we always consider when we're putting forth a bid.
And my other question is on 55A. And so just so I understand that, the item that's tabled, Dartmouth Hitchcock Doorway, is being replaced by
Yes,
this item?
and I'm going to withdraw that item, the prior item that was tabled, because this is the new item that's on 55A, that's on the agenda. Because I would not ask for consideration of the prior table last year, but this is a new negotiated item. I should have clarified that.
So with 55A, and I just want to be clear, again, I said this in the very beginning, I support the doorway concept, the process is important, Lebanon, community, this is an important concept. I just believe that when you look at all the indirect costs of the budget items of the doorway project, that 35% indirect cost line items stood out. And I appreciate the fact that, I understand there's a federal negotiated rate, but the fact that your department went back to Dartmouth, and I met with Dartmouth representatives, and they have agreed to reduce the indirect down to 15%, like the highest rate, which was, I believe, Elliott. And so basically, can you just go through, before I make a decision on this one, so I understand, they've taken that additional 15% of indirect and put it back into the budget, but there were no, am I correct to believe there were no cut reductions in the indirect to the extent that that 250, let's say it's a $500,000 indirect, that the $250,000 cut reduced indirect would go into more services, which is what I wanted to see here. Did the additional $250,000, around roughly that amount, go into additional services?
So, thanks for the question, because this is important. What happened when the feedback came from you about the indirect rate is that there was reference to other doorway contracts. I believe Elliott was one of them. And so in looking at how that cost allocation happens, they are able to apply, as we know, on the federal funds, the indirect negotiated rate that they have with their feds. Instead, what they did is they went back to the budget, they looked at Elliott's budget, they looked at the other doorway budgets, and they cost allocated in a very similar way, so that provider insurance, occupancy, and finance staff have to specifically be allocated to the doorway program, and they have to demonstrate that when they submit their invoices to us. So we could quibble about it, but the occupancy is a huge part of the doorway program. We need a place for people to walk in and have those services delivered. So I would say that they are going into services. It's just a more precise way to account for the costs of running those three doorways.
So I appreciate that answer. Again, so the answer of it going into direct services to those that need in the community, which is what I was hoping Dr. can come back with, is not the case. But the occupancy, I get that. And then I went back over all the other contracts we approved, and it's all over the place. Would you agree? I mean, one of the occupancies, for example, at one of the hospitals, Concord and Nashville, 74,000. They come back with occupancy at Dartmouth, 204,000. Well, I asked the question, why is it 204,000 at Dartmouth? Tell me how you can justify that. And then I look at insurance, $20,000 for insurance as an indirect. Now it's a direct. Yes, great that they allocated it, but no other doorway project, no other contract that we approve has insurance as an item that they even put in. I'm assuming it's in their indirects. So the whole thing's out of whack, okay? I'm sorry to say that, but can someone tell me that from the department that in the future, when we look at these doorway contracts, that we're going to have some standards here on how we're going to charge, what is making up the indirect, what makes up the direct, and how in looking closely at those services to make sure that, for example, Dartmouth's $204,000 for occupancy versus Elliott's, I believe, $64,000, that there's justification for doing that. And I'm not seeing that there. You're asking me to vote for this, but Dartmouth is an asset for us and they're providing good services. I just want to make sure the next time these doorway contracts come to us, that somebody is absolutely scrutinizing direct and indirect costs in every one of these doorway projects.
I will say that the cost structures of hospitals systems across the state are very, very different. And that's what's reflected in this particular program. So I think that if we were to scrutinize any of our costs, if we were to take our healthcare bills, we would see huge variation across the hospital systems. But I think that our finance team does an amazing job in scrutinizing, and that's why they serve on the team, and why we so closely and carefully look at the invoices that come in. But I'm not sure, and I will leave it to the commissioner, on whether standardization, if it can be a requirement of the bidding process or the contracting process.
And just the final question, just a statement and question. Just general scrutiny. Elliott comes in with a budget at 64,000 occupancy. That's 1.8 million. Dartmouth is 2.2 million for the same services. But Dartmouth is 204,000 for occupancy. Why is that different? What is the justification? Those are the simple things that I want to have asked and answered before, and that's why standardization may be good. I'm sorry to belabor the point of that, but these contracts need to have some type of scrutiny. They're important, but they're also fiscally is a lot of money. So anyways.
I do want to point out too that we're talking about 3 locations for Dartmouth in this contract, and not just one, like there is at the
Again, if that's the case, we're talking about them charging us for insurance and everybody else putting their indirects. There's so many issues that have come out of the budgets here that I don't believe anyone in the department is really scrutinizing the way it should be. That's all. And I'm hoping in the future it comes in a better explanation.
Council Leo Hill.
Thank you very much. This is the contract for the doorway for the Upper Valley and for the Upper Sullivan County, which includes a lot of rural New Hampshire, and it includes a lot of people who are struggling with substance use. The doorway program is, I think it was Councilor Stevens who said at the meeting recently that this is the difference between recovery and relapse. These are people's lives, and this right now is the only doorway contract of the 9 that has been held up. I do think that the council's job of exercising oversight has come into play, has been effective here. Councilor Stevens raised a question about indirect rates, and Dartmouth went back and revised the way that they were calculating their rates so that it was more in line with the other 8 doorway programs, and has submitted this revised budget. So I guess at this point, I think the question is whether people in the Upper Valley and Sullivan County will continue to have access to this critical substance use treatment entry point. There is no doorway unless there's a door for someone to come through, and right now that's at risk. So a couple of quick questions. Can you confirm, can DHHS confirm for the record that the indirect rate has been reduced from 35 to 15%?
Yes.
Thank you. How does this revised rate compare to the other 8 doorway providers?
I did not bring that information, but as Councilor Stevens just pointed out, some are 15 and some are much lower than that.
I think the average is around 15. Thank you. And if this contract was not approved, what would be the impact in the Upper Valley and Sullivan County?
So we would experience closures between now and in September 29th, when the contract officially ends. And the department could consider, there would be a huge gap in services. We could consider going out for an RFP for those types of services. The whole idea of the doorway program is to have 24/7 access through various means, and the hospitals were chosen because of their operations. And we would have to try to find a qualified vendor that could come forth and provide the same level of services. And I think that would be extremely helpful.
Well, thank you. I think in this case, oversight has worked. The contract was questioned, the rate was recalculated, and now I think it's time for the service to move forward. I hope that we can pass this contract today, because it's important for not just my district, but for all of us, for the entire state, because the doorways have to be there. It only works if the whole system works. And the doorway program is proven and it is effective, and we know that it is helping people in their time of need. So we cannot afford to let this one falter when the questions have been asked and answered.
Councilor Stevens.
Well, thank you, Governor. I fully supported you down to 100% on this agenda item 118, which is a $7.6 million increase to $15.2 million for Mary Hitchcock Memorial Hospital's doorway program. There's sharing of $2.3 million to $5 million, but what's really critical is the $4.9 million increase for unmet flexible needs, which will make the difference between someone staying sober and not. That could potentially be for transportation, for childcare, putting food in their mouths. Correct?
Correct. And medications as well, access to medications.
So 275 patients were at risk. Correct?
Yes, and we also spoke at the last meeting about the access to unmet needs. This You mean
rural?
geographically
Yeah,
rural? Yeah, I think taken in totality, yes.
Seriously, nobody does. There's nobody who's going to step in and provide a service.
It's hard to envision who would be able to do that.
But getting back to unmet needs, public transportation is somewhat limited in Council Lyon's district. So getting transportation issues resolved is critical.
Absolutely, and you've approved previously a transportation contract. Well, there's no place to transport that person to. So they, yes, and so that's why it all comes together.
Fully support it. Have to do it.
Council Bryan?
Thank you, Kevin. There's been discussion about the doorways and we're not supporting it. But what happens if you don't support it? I don't think anybody on this council doesn't support the doorways. I made it very clear that I support it. That's why I was working on this officers. But I also want to compliment my colleague, John Stephen, for being dogged on indirect costs and trying to bring them down to a reasonable amount that's respectful and that meets, you know, the taxpayers' needs, and also to redirect those other additional indirect costs overrun to services that are needed. I just don't, you know, we tabled this last time. There were reasons why we tabled it. We've gotten to those reasons. I think we have a better contract. And I thank Council Stevens for being the taxpayer watchdog, because otherwise, we're just gonna be the council that says, go to the council, they're just gonna say yes. Every time the contract comes in, just go to them, they're gonna say yes. But we need to say no every once in a while, because we wanna strengthen the contract, provide essential service, but also protect the taxpayer. So no one's not gonna support the doorways contract today. I don't want any scare tactics of it. We're gonna support it and all the great work that John does.
And I want to thank Dartmouth, Mary Hitchcock for coming forward and being willing to work on your budget and to have this resolved.
Is there any further discussion of these items? Hearing none, all in favor of items 53 through 55A, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And go on 54, which is
I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 56, from the Project Health and Human Services related to children aged. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I ask for a motion to remove from the table item 170 from the Department of Health and Human Services Division for Youth, Children, Youth, and Families. So moved. Second. All in favor of removing this item from the table, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'd ask for a motion and a second to discuss this item. So moved. Second. All in favor of discussion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries, and this is open for discussion. Any councilors want to ask questions? Council Leonard.
Thank you. Yesterday, the Attorney General issued a report, and this was a report that came after an investigation. There was also recently a report issued by the Disability Rights Commission and the Child Advocate. And while the reports differ in some of their findings, one thing that they all agree on is that there is a severe shortage in staffing at the Youth Detention Center, the Sununu Youth Services Center. This is a safety issue. The report from the AG found that the facility does not have sufficient levels of experienced staff to operate safely. It also describes serious dysfunction, lack of leadership, safety risks for both youth and staff. Tabling this contract, I voted against tabling this contract at the last meeting. And subsequent to that meeting, we found that an allegation that had been made in the last meeting was later debunked, that the allegation was unfounded. I believe that it is, well, I'll ask a couple of questions to the Commissioner. Commissioner, can you tell us how many youth counselor vacancies exist today, and how many staff are currently out on workers' compensation or restricted duty?
Yes, we have right
currently 46 full-time youth counselors. And when you look at our vacancy rate for positions that are either not filled or out on some type of medical leave of absence, we're looking at about a 53% vacancy rate for youth counselors.
And there have been some reports about injuries. Can you talk about how many people are out on injuries or what's happening in the facility?
I can tell you that a significant portion of staff are out with injuries.
If this contract is not approved, and you told us at the last meeting that if this contract was tabled, that the temp staffing contract would expire on June 30th, and that was already a critical situation in terms of staffing shortage, would become a crisis. Has that in fact happened? What has happened over the last couple of weeks subsequent to the tabling of the last meeting?
So as of June 30th, we no longer have emeritus till July 1st, effective July 1st, emeritus staff in there. So that left us with a significantly reduced staffing levels where I was required to mandate overtime for particular positions in the department. I put a call out to everyone in my department that needed to be available to help. I have my senior team in there helping. I've been down there. It's been everybody trying to keep it afloat. The challenge is we just don't have enough staff for the type of acuity that we're seeing in the facility and the things that are happening in there. We need more staff. 46, even 46, and I think the Attorney General's report confirmed this, is not enough to even meet the staffing ratios that we currently have.
And the long-term solution is going to be some sort of assessment. I think the AG's report gives a recommendation about making an assessment and coming up with a long-term plan to address this long-term and I guess chronic staffing shortage at the facility. But in the meantime, is temporary staffing the short-term fix?
I will say this, I'll just pull back for a minute and say that for the last 8 or so years, we've seen a decrease from the legislature in our budget for what you see. So if that's staffing or that's to be able to run the facility. And that erosion over time has helped lead to where we are today. So staffing is definitely one of the first and foremost things to be able to assure safety in the facility. And we're running dangerously low right now. As you see, we have state police in there, not to interact day to day, but to be there to support the staff should an incident occurs, and incidents occurs quite a bit. So the goal is to hire to the appropriate staffing levels. I'd like to do a staffing analysis of exactly what that level is for the ratios, and then be able to hire full-time permanent positions to be able to do that at all levels. I think there's been an erosion of professional positions at the facility as well. It's not just the youth counselors, there's other functions within the facility that have seen that. So I would say a complete staffing analysis. And so yes, we need right now to be able to stabilize, then to be able to make meaningful change.
Thank you. Staffing alone will not fix the situation, but without temporary staffing, none of the other reforms are even possible. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
Well, I think that tabling the contract at the last meeting, I didn't agree with it then. I really hope that we can pass this today, because I think we've already made a dangerous situation even worse, and I think we need to take immediate action to correct that.
Councilor Kenny.
I just had a kind of follow-up to some of the discussion that's just going on. When I read that report, temporary or part-time staffing means inexperience. These are not really experienced people who are overweight and almost much of the population. Is that true?
It's not true in all instances. I mean, you do have people that come to some of those agencies with a background, and then we turn around and then train them so that they will at least have the tools to be able to do that job. But the depth of experience is probably not, what you would get from somebody that's been there for a longer period of time.
And one of the other questions we have is background checks of employees. Is that now standard SOP?
It's always been standard. We've always done that.
For part-time?
Yes, I think the thing that we were able to affirm with this particular provider, Marigis, was that they actually do all of our required checks, and then they actually do additional checks on top of that in terms of that reliability.
Okay. And the other thing in that report was it was talking about operational culture. There's a sense of miscommunication, leadership, and that kind of filters down to employees, full-time employees, and how they're doing their job. Is that their assessment?
I would like to thank the Attorney General's office for a thorough review of what was happening in the facility, affirming that the facility is not doing anything illegal, which is, I think, first and foremost, very important to make sure that children were not being harmed by staff, and I think we validated that. I think in the review that they did, they also uncovered some organizational culture challenges, everything that you've just mentioned, and they have specific recommendations that we are leaning into and going to be addressing each and every one of those recommendations as expediently as possible as we can. Essential to our success for that will be resources. I can't make change without resources.
No, I understand that, and in that report it mentioned because of the operational culture and leadership deficiencies, that it's the individual youth that are striking out against authorities. Is that correct?
We have a dysfunctional dynamic happening with that. I believe that youth are picking up on some of the hesitancy of staff to engage for a variety of reasons, some mentioned in the report.
Okay. No, I just, there's a lot more to this report that we can talk about for, like time as well. I learned more from the Attorney General's report in DCYL in the Community Center than I have in my entire time here at the council. That's how good the report is. I was just blown away by the level of, detail, understanding of what was going on in the facility, the interviews that they did with dozens and dozens of people, both staff, with former staff, and former, bureau chief. I thought it was fabulous that they, were almost doing basic interviews with people who had already left. And I think that the recommendations were spot on, at least from my viewpoint. So I think it's a healthy report. I think it's constructive. And, I know as a council for my district, I want to help. So I just think, staffing, whether it's at the Veterans Home, whether it's at corrections or at the community center, we're all fighting these workforce challenges, that's for sure. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Stevens.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for speaking with me last night and responding to my letter June 25th regarding contract fulfillment by Emergis. And I fully support this contract, and I'm hoping that we'll have heightened supervision and training for these youth counselors. The Attorney General's report regarding its investigation into reported concerns at SYSC is unequivocal. SYSC lacks a clear operating philosophy, strong leadership, sufficient experienced staff, and effective accountability for both employees and youth. These deficiencies have created a culture of dysfunction that has contributed to a significant safety climate throughout the facility. The staffing data that you responded to is even more alarming than initially portrayed, and you touched upon that with vacancies at 53%. And I think it's important to note prior levels of staffing have been upwards of 80, correct? Correct. In prior administration. But what's very troubling, in addition to the youth counselors, is the supervisor coverage, which has effectively collapsed. I believe there are 8 supervisory positions. Only a small fraction are available for full-day assignments, correct? Correct. And we presently, with, I think, 7 are out. At this time, we have 1. Correct. The Attorney General's report specifically identifies inadequate supervision as a contributing factor to the May 3rd incident, making this one of the most serious operational deficiencies facing the facility. With this contract, the state will have invested $6 million in contracted staffing with Emergis and we're not training. That's the buzzword when it comes to this contract. As you shared with me, since 2021, 119 contracted youth counselors have been assigned SYSC, yet only 21 remained longer than 1 year. 83% turnover rate, and were terminated or replaced. So these numbers reflect a revolving door workforce rather than a stable staffing environment necessary to safely care for these vulnerable youth. But again, we had 221 start, 119 come through the door, 99 left. Equally concerning is the report's finding that it has not been until June 12th of this year that contracted emergency staff began to receive training in critical areas comparable to our state employees. Is that correct?
I think the training from June 12th, they were receiving some of the same training we added to that training, yes.
But restorative practices, SYSC guided behavior, youth mental health, searching of games, human trafficking, and drug testing were added, correct?
Yes.
So for nearly 5 years, contracted personnel were working at some of New Hampshire's most challenging youth without receiving the same specialized training provided to our state employees, correct?
Correct.
And the requirements for the job, you're looking for 6 months of experience from emergence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just in closing, one thing that caught my eye in this report was the concern regarding clinical responses during emergencies and codes. And the Attorney General flagged it. It notes that with one exception, clinicians generally do not respond to behavioral crisis codes because they wish to preserve their therapeutic relationships with you and avoid being viewed negatively if physical interventions become necessary. Spoke with several clinicians, hospital-based settings, so many respond. So I think that's a quick fix that our clinicians start responding. Well, I'm going to support this contract with heightened supervision, but I'm pleased to see that training has been enhanced for these youth counselors. We're paying $42 per hour for this vendor, but our state employees are making $19 an hour. I would much rather you and I discuss this, bring on state employees. It's going to take the support of the legislature, correct?
Yes.
No, and I appreciate, again, you responded to about 10 pages of questions, and I appreciate your follow-up.
Is there any further discussion of tabled item 170? If not, all in favor of tabled item 170 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The item carries. Thank you. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 57 from the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Economic Stability. Second. Any discussion of this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The item carries. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 58 and 59 from the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Long-Term Support and Services.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion of these items? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The items carry. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 60 from the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Medicaid Services.
Second.
Any discussion of this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I ask for, the item carries. I ask for a motion to adopt rate item A in the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Medicaid Services.
Second.
Any discussion of rate item A? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The item carries. I ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 61 from the Department of Health and Human Services, New Hampshire Hospital. Second. Any discussion of this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries
Well, I'll try to be brief, and I feel like this is a good room to be brief. And
I'm expecting to be brief.
they work for us. In fact, Jared and I are literally after this meeting, if the second passes, going to go up the hill and talk and meet with them and talk about that. So the direction is they work for the state of New Hampshire, not the other way around. They're there to help us implement our priorities. Are they going to do things? Yes, they're going to do a lot of research and a lot of everything we're broken for. But they'll do what we tell them to do, as if they work, as like everybody else here work for all of us.
That's what I was hoping to do. Thank you.
Great. Any further questions for the Commissioner? Councilor Kenny.
I always have a question for the Commissioner. This question is on the state property, so in Laconia. And so last meeting I asked you about what was the impact of the building burning down, and you indicated that really anything. But now I've kind of recently discovered that the Pillsbury Realty would like to see an environmental impact study of some kind on the burning of that building, which I guess a letter or request is going in your office. My concern is that I was under the impression they're ready to sign at the end of the month or early August, but until that study is completed, they might ask for an option to extend the timeline in that purchase sales agreement. So can we guarantee them a turnaround from DES on this environmental impact
Well,
study
so,
on that building that burnt down?
yeah, so there are a couple of things. I don't believe this will materially affect the sale. Doesn't mean there are things we have to do. I will be coming to you later with our retro contract. I'll send you an informational description this week. We're gonna have to spend up to $300,000 to remediate the site. There are specific environmental requirements when something like this burns and there hazardous materials, and we're going to have to remediate that. So we don't just bury it and leave it in the ground. We have to take care of it. We own the property, we take care of it. What they've asked for is in communication with us is to keep them informed about what we're doing and the results of what we're doing. We're under a 30-day clock from environmental regulations, which we're fulfilling. We're talking with them. I talked to Kevin Smith, Jared talked to Mary Paula the other day, and we're discussing that with them. So they want to know what happened, and they want to see all the results. Well, we're just going to give them everything. And so will it affect the timing of the closing? Maybe. I mean, just a building burn out on the site, well, it might affect the timing. Does it affect the likelihood that the property's going to close? No.
So you mentioned a cost estimate of $300,000.
Roughly.
Who pays for that?
We do. We own the property.
So at the last meeting, we said there was no impact.
No impact on the sale. No impact on whether or not it's going to close.
Well,
there are issues with it. There are always issues with the property.
I would argue that is an impact to the sale. Because until you get that done, until they're happy, that impacts the sale.
Under that definition, then it impacts the sale.
Right. Okay. Let's get moving, let's get it done.
We're not, I just want to, I'm going to take umbrage with let's get moving. There aren't people sitting on their ass not doing anything every day.
I didn't say
There are
that.
people working every day.
I know.
I had people the day the building burned down on site watching the fire. We worked with the police, with the fire department every day on this. We followed their direction. We've been working with DES from the day it happened. The building was turned over to us essentially the same day. And I have staff that is working hard and working overtime to get everything done that needs to be done. We're not delaying anything, nothing is taking extra time. We're working diligently, constantly, and consistently to get everything done properly.
I'm not saying that anybody's sitting on the rear end. What I'm simply saying is, the answer you gave me at the last government council meeting was insufficient. And now I'm hearing what the real answer is, and that burnt down and complications that creates for the staff and for potentially the sale of that property.
I'm sorry, I'm going to push back on that. The answer I gave you was not in any way misleading or inaccurate. The question you had at the last meeting was about the sale. And I believe then, I believe now it won't affect the sale. I don't want to say that a comprehensive analysis of what we need to do on the site, I didn't have then. And if you had wanted that then, we could have gone through it, but I would have said I have to get back in a week. And I'm happy to, twice a week, send you an email informing you on the progress of this.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. Long before you were commissioner, I was on this project, pushing. I'm not gonna stop pushing. And I wanna see this a success for the state, for the city of Laconia, and for the developer. We have a great developer, they wanna buy it, they wanna sign it, so that's all. I'm just saying.
We want the same things.
Okay.
I think we all want to make sure this is successful, so I appreciate the discussion. Is there any further questions for the commissioner? Hearing none, then all in favor of items 64 through 69, signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes are carried. Is there any other business to come before the council today? Council, please.
The likelihood of procurement contract coming back, is that an option?
I fully support that contract. I haven't heard that, that council voted against it, have changed their mind on this, but I've always been supportive of that to help our child care workforce.
As have I, and I hope we can bring it up. I continue to hear from child care providers who would say that it's a critical part of their addressing
Well,
their
I'm certainly happy to have her discussions and see if there's anyone in the council that has changed their view on this, because I've always supported it. Thank you.
Can I answer that since everyone's adding to it? What I've heard from a lot of my child care providers is they appreciated that we're looking at workforce and trying to get more money for the workforce.
Well, I think that concludes this meeting, unless there's further business before the council. And if not, I would say thank you all for being here, and I want to thank again the Millyard and Council Stephen for having the meeting here, and the leader for the great presentation. And we're so proud of the history of this Millyard and how it continues to thrive and grow. So thank you all for being here today.
Haven't seen you for a while.